should not make 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. We are going to do a major transformation of our educational system, because I happen to believe that a civilized society, a caring society, is a society that pays attention to the most vulnerable people in the country. And those are the children, those are the elderly. And I got to tell you something, we do a real disservice to the children of America, all right? We don't talk about it very much, but we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, okay? There are kids in America who are hungry. There are children in America who are sleeping out on the streets with their families, and on it goes. Anyone want to talk a little bit about child care or pre-K education? Okay, sir, how are we doing for the kids in pre-K?
Well, I'd like to say something about the electric shock. Currently, some states are allowing electric shock to children from age 0 to 5. And electric shock is also mainly directed at senior citizens, mostly women, with dementia. Now, recently, the electric shock machine manufacturers got sued, and what's turned out is they haven't been forwarding adverse reactions to the FDA. And that's why the FDA says, well, we never received any adverse reactions. Since this lawsuit went through...
Okay, I'll tell you something. I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to get back to you.
Okay.
All right, I'm not going to run away, but I want to stay on the issue of children for a moment.
Well,
okay.
Some states have banned, 19 states have banned the electric shock of children now.
Okay, that's good. That is good. I'm familiar with the issue, but I want to just talk about, I want you to think what this campaign is about. You know, we're a different type of campaign. We're asking you to think outside of the box. So it's a simple question. We are the richest country in the history of the world. Obviously, therefore, we take really great care of the children, don't we? Oh, we don't. All right. I see a hand over there. Ma'am?
I think a lot of the problem that we have, Bernie, is that we've got a system that's completely broke at that level. When the children are needy and they get into the system, you know, when they have to get social workers and
right.
all these bunches of people in these people's lives. I lived it for 15 years. I'm a retired attorney, and I don't know how many times I sat in a room of 7, 8, 10 professional people. Who knows how much you were paying each one of them to sit and put all these burdens on these poor families, and when all they need is a little more money.
Okay.
So you really ought to think about that expense.
I agree.
Cash to the kids instead of money to the rich.
Okay, one second, sir. Sir. All right, sir. Okay, please. Okay, I'm happy. Okay. All right, child care. We're doing a good by child care? It's quality care, affordable for kids, is it? No. All right, so that's why we are going to have universal, high-quality, affordable child care. Okay? We are going to make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that any person in this country... All right? Anybody here dealing with student debt? All right, student loans. All right, we're going to cancel student loans in America. Now, okay. Now, people say, how are you going to do that? Isn't that a lot of money? And the answer is, it is a lot of money. But I want you all to think, and this is thinking outside of the box. 11 years ago, when the crooks on Wall Street destroyed this economy, all remember that? Yeah. What kind of severe punishment did the CEOs of the Wall Street firms get? You remember? Oh, I guess they got a bailout. That was their punishment. And today, they're bigger and more profitable.
without acting alone. Have me long and slow. Have me long and slow. You without have no soul. Without acting alone. Have me long and slow. Have me long and slow. Without have no soul.
welcome to the Soapbox. Patron Contributor Appreciation Special. Thanks all. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is my wife, Mrs. Thomas. Welcome to the Soapbox. How you doing today?
Marvelous.
It is a late Soapbox, but we're here nonetheless. I didn't necessarily want to pass this up more than 2 Sundays, and it took me a while to accrue the stories that I wanted to accrue today. Not to mention, I was a busy beaver early this morning, so I was getting kind of a bit of rest in the evening.
I was geared up, ready to go at like noon, and he was like, "Yeah, I haven't been to bed yet. I need to chill for a little bit."
I need to mellow out for a bit. I hope you guys had a really good Sunday, though. I don't necessarily know if my audience is a bunch of churchgoers. I don't think they are.
I doubt it.
But
thumbs
whatever
up if
you
you're a
did
churcher.
for your particular Sunday.
I mean, if you
I hope you enjoyed it.
church going.
I have a really good story. Starting off, Jeff Kuntz. Jeff Kuntz is my secret guy. I don't even know if that's his real name. He's been with me forever, and he keeps me abreast.
Kuntz sounds like a fake name. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's like an operative. But he keeps me abreast on all sorts of things that I don't see, especially from the standpoint of the UFO community and those type of things.
Oh, gosh.
Now, I saw this one on my own. But he did send it to me,
Okay.
even though I saw it on my own.
So our first story is a UFO story.
Yes, it is. RT retweets a story from Dr. Lear. Roger Lear. Now, I ran this story 3 years ago, which is why I knew the story, A, was true, and B, it shocked me to see it on RT because RT was essentially validating that it was true.
Were you on YouTube 3 years ago?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, early on, when I was having my 420s.
Okay.
Roger Lear,
Fair
just
enough.
to give backstory. Roger Lear is a doctor that will pull out UFO implants. This gentleman. Now,
sorry.
this guy.
I know who that is.
Now, Lear didn't like touching the UFO stuff. Meaning, he doesn't want to deal with the craft. He doesn't want to deal with these people saying beings. None of that stuff. His point was, I'm going in and I'm retrieving something that this person said was injected in them by a being from elsewhere.
Right. He's not speculating on what that thing is. Just
Or even if it's
there
real.
is a thing there.
Right.
I'm taking it out.
I'm taking it
I
out.
don't know how it got there.
That's where Lear goes.
Okay.
Lear doesn't deal with the UFO stuff. Now, I don't know if it's because Lear didn't feel he didn't want to be discredited by it. Meaning like, oh, this is a quack doctor. I don't know what it was, but he was very specific. I just want this part. Not the other part. So all the weirder still, and ironic, that Lear is in Turkey. And during the time he's in Turkey, there's a craft that they were saying that was routinely coming back. Lear is there when that craft comes back. There's a Turkish film crew that is there when that craft comes back. And Lear gets the opportunity, first time in his life, a doctor who eschewed the UFO stuff to actually see a UFO. Now, the video footage on this is amazing. And it's amazing in a way, and I'm going to show you the craft. And the footage they tried to debunk it at a Turkish, school, wasn't able to do it. And I'm going to show you the craft. But I'm also going to show you when they zero in on the craft. And by the way, RT showed this exact same thing that I showed years ago. Because once they had the video footage, it was just, zooming in. You could see portholes and those type of things when you're out there.
Wait, show us.
Okay. All right. So, this is Lear talking about it.
Are we going to see the footage?
And you're going to see the footage. Now, RT has the footage where he's the zooming video and everything else. But this is a still shot of what he saw.
Incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in the clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Craft.
Yes, there is, and it was seen, you have to remember, 3 years in a row.
Right.
And so on, and there was absolutely nothing. From about midnight till...
All right, my system is doing kooky things and it was freezing a bit, so I'm going to restart this particular one. I need to grab one of these though, because I think I can even show you.
Can I give the intro while you open it?
Well, oh, it's ready.
Oh.
But yeah. Give the intro. Do your thing. You're right. I stopped you from doing your thing. They said when I talk about UFOs, I look like a younger man, and so maybe my enthusiasm was just over swelling out of me. But do you think?
Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. If you did not know, today is the Contributor Appreciation Show. Once a week, Jamarl takes one show out to give thanks. To say thank you. Well, Thanksgiving's coming up. To say thank you for everyone who contributes to the channel. It started off as a patron appreciation, and he would go onto the Patreon platform and ask what everybody wanted to talk about for this week. And so that's why it was originally patron appreciation, but now it is contributor appreciation. So if you are a patron on the Patreon platform, make sure that you log in once a week to see the posting, and you can submit your topic suggestions there, and he pulls the content for this show from your topic suggestions. If you are not aware of what Patreon is, if you enjoy the content of a content creator, you can say, I want him to continue to create this great content. I'm going to support him monetarily, and I'm going to commit to $2 a month, whatever it is, and you are then a patron. And so thank you to everyone that is no, I'm not done.
Patreon.
No, thank you to everyone who's a patron on the Patreon platform. Don't interrupt me. Thank you, especially erroneously. So if you are a patron on the Patreon platform, thank you. And also thank you for everyone who contributes through Streamlabs, PayPal, Super Chats, the random stuff we get in the mail, and everyone who is just here in support with their views, their shares, their likes, and their subscriptions.
Yes. All that good stuff.
We're here for you today.
Yes.
Or he's here for you today. I'm just crashing
You're
the
my
show.
Sidekick. Yeah, you're my sidekick. You're my Robin. You've been wearing the
So thank you. Also, if you are enjoying the content, give it a thumbs up. That helps YouTube's funky little algorithm let people know that we are live, because we only got 70 people here, and we want to get a lot of people here on the show. So give it a thumbs up. If you did not know, I am looking at my phone so that I can see you all's comments and catch them and read them aloud as they are relevant to the current topic. Go.
All right. So this is Roger Lear in his own voice. This is him explaining it, and then I want to show you the video itself.
Till 5 o'clock in the morning, filming out over the water. Now, we did a very careful analysis of the surroundings prior to the time when we actually did any filming. We checked with binoculars to see if there was any ships in that area that were passing by, any light interferences that would be coming from land, lighthouses and so on. And there was absolutely nothing. One of the years, I don't remember, I think it was 2009, Jaime Maussan from Mexico was there with his own film team. So the Turkish team was not the only one that did the filming. So I have to describe the night, because we're standing on an elevated deck which has nothing between us and the water. So there was a rather warm night, and there was a very, very bright full moon. So the camera we were using had a 300 millimeter lens and an electronic doubler. In other words, we were able to...
He has to say all this stuff because he's trying to explain, like, this. He's trying to set, this is how we got this. Like, this is the surroundings and stuff like this. This is the lens. Because if you ever try to analyze this, you can use the lens and everything else to try to come up with a reasonable analysis. He's not hiding the ball. He's saying this is what we got.
Okay.
All right, so let's keep going.
Push or close in on the object, 600 times magnification.
Wow.
So we started by looking at the moon.
Evening.
There must have been, I would say, at least a dozen.
Now, what Lear is saying is, look, when we magnify this image, the first image that you're shown, you can see portholes in the image itself. And within the portholes, this was the image that they were able to find. Now, RT runs this. RT runs this. No bullshit. That's real. Now, whether or not Roger Lear would have had to be making this up, and I gotta be honest, I don't buy Roger Lear making this up. He just seems to be so against the UFO thing to be making this part up. It would be really bizarre for him to just say all of a sudden in his life, all right, now I'm just gonna bullshit this. And again, he wasn't there alone. The Turkish team was also videotaping and recording the footage. It's there for analysis. I would love to see the actual analysis of the image. But supposedly they tried to debunk this. I would even put the thing below so you can see him talk about this throughout the podcast so you can get a fuller explanation of what was taking place. Fascinating.
This is not good image quality.
Well, he has it magnified like 600 times, and they're in pitch black. It's like 3 a.m. You can do the image quality for yourself.
No, I can't.
Do you believe that Roger Lear is lying?
I didn't know that, Cat.
Do you believe that the other Turkish team that's with him was lying?
I didn't hear them.
Yeah. I guess my point is...
I feel you.
I don't think Lear is lying about it. Let me say it that way. I don't know why Lear would lie about it. Here's the catch. The Navy, at this point, has said this phenomena is real.
Right.
Whatever you want to think of it. The Navy has co-signed this and said this phenomena is real.
So...
The public hasn't internalized that. At least I don't think the public has. Because the moment that the public internalizes that, all sorts of stuff are immediately on the table. How did they get here? Our physics says it's not possible for them to get here. And correct, who is they? How many of them are they? What are the technological differences between us and them? What is the perspective of them? Do they believe in God?
Is it us?
Are they capitalists? You're going to have all sorts of questions that people are going to ask across the table. What about abductions? Are they hostile?
Is it us?
I have no idea what you mean. Oh, right. Is it us? Well, the is it us thing goes into conspiracy theory. Like, the is it us thing goes into, there is a parallel set of technology that has been hidden from the American public and that is running ahead of our own.
I really don't see the benefit of it being us. Like, our government. Like,
if they're trying to spook the public, that's the only thing I can think of.
Why? Like, to what end, I guess?
Oh, financial. Like if you, for example...
to get more money.
Weapon contracts.
Oh.
And this kind of goes exactly to my point, right? Tom DeLonge was instrumental in getting those videotapes released. Those videotapes that proved, once and for all, that the U.S. military was engaging UFOs. Now, the military commander also co-signed that, saying, yes, for a time we were encountering UFOs, unidentified flying phenomena, meaning there's something in our airspace. We don't necessarily know what it is. We don't know who it is. We have been doing investigations in clandestine ways to figure out how their ships function and their functions. But for the most part, we don't know. That's the argument. That's the mainstream line of what is taking place. But the phenomenon itself has been legitimized. Tom DeLonge was instrumental in getting this done. Singer for Blink-182. I know it sounds weird, but Tom DeLonge, it is random as hell. He has all strewn out the WikiLeaks documents. WikiLeaks, him, the spooks that Tom DeLonge was talking to, Podesta, all of these guys were talking about UFOs. Glenn, meaning the astronauts themselves, all of these guys were talking about UFOs all strewn throughout the WikiLeaks documents. It is fascinating. And it also legitimized him.
This cat.
Because up to that point, people were like, yeah, Tom DeLonge is a UFO guy. Get the fuck out of here. You're just a singer. But the moment that you can see him in the documents, his spooks were real spooks. Meaning they did have clout. And all of a sudden you had pilots coming out saying, yes, I was in that ship flying around. So it wasn't just the videos. It was also having the military itself co-sign what is taking place. Like, this has never taken place before in this country. I hope you understand what I mean. The public has not internalized that. I don't believe the public has internalized that yet. Tom DeLonge, my biggest issue with Tom DeLonge was believes in the bad alien theory. He believes that there's something out there to get us.
Taking babies. And
right. They're eating babies, or they're injecting women in order to get the babies out. He believes in that stuff. And the only thing Tom DeLonge has to go by, though, is what he has read or what he's been told by other spooks. He's had no experiences himself. I find that to be somewhat dangerous, only because where this can go. If this is right, meaning if there is something, whatever that something is, we have no idea. Like, we're so far away from any information resolving that. We don't even know if the mainstream story that they put out that legitimizes the issue is true in and of itself. Like, we don't know anything of this. And so it becomes a little bit dangerous in regards to our politics being driven by something that we don't have any information on. But congressmen are asking. They're saying, look, what are the physics necessary for the craft to do the things that you're saying that these craft were doing? The New York Times, Washington Post, Politico. At this point, this has been substantiated by the military itself. Listen to Tom DeLonge. This is original footage. This was edited. And you're going to see why it was edited. Listen to what Tom DeLonge is saying.
One, there are certain things that should never have been secret. Two, there are secrets that were justifiable at the time but should now be disclosed. And three, there are things that are so terrifying and unimaginable that certain interests believe that they should never, ever be made.
Which part was edited? Which part do you think I edited? That last part.
Terrible and
that terrifying. No, he says there are things that are so terrifying
and unimaginable
that we don't believe this should ever come about. That's the perspective that he's taken on this. So even if he never says anything about it, and I've heard him give interviews, he has stopped giving that type of interview. He stopped saying stuff like that. That stuff has been...
But this is the stuff that he was saying before the Navy was like, yes. Yeah, something's going on.
Yes.
But now he's trying to go more mainstream.
Well, no, he gives bad interviews. And because he gives bad interviews, you know, they's like, dude, we need you to stop trying to scare the shit out of people. Even though my argument was their goal, to some degree, is to scare the shit out of people. My argument was he has so many spooks behind him, and because of his perspective of this, and his organization is supposedly like a space agency. Like to put it in perspective, Tom DeLonge has said, TTSA, in his own words, TTSA is not a UFO research group. We are an advanced aerospace science and entertainment consortium run by former progressive director Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, multiple high-ranking defense and intelligence officials and physicists. He is right, by the way. He's right.
Aerospace Science and Entertainment Consortium?
Yes. Well, and let me explain.
Is T-Boz in here? I mean,
well,
entertainment.
Let me explain why. He has all sorts of physicists that were part of government sciences, going in everything from invisibility, warp drive, cloaking technology, all of this weird Star Trek-esque technologies that these guys were studying. He's gotten those physicists to step down with him, not to mention Luis Elizondo to come with him and spooks to come with him. Like, when he has the muscle with this. But here's the catch. How are you, an aerospace firm, just getting $1 million here and there? You're not. How do you get money in order to build what you're trying to build, meaning the ship that he wants to build? The only way you're going to get that money is by military contracts. The only way you're going to get those military contracts is if there is a threat somewhere that the military believes that it needs to deal with. And what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? What do you know? Look at this. TTSA has announced a cooperative research and development agreement with the U.S. Army to advance our material and technology innovations in order to develop enhanced capabilities for Army ground vehicles. It's starting. I was right. My point was that their organization had to, almost by definition of what they wanted to be, get money from the military because there was no way the people were going to donate enough money for them to build a rocket ship. The entertainment consortium part has to do with him believing that he needs to get information out to the public, ferret it from the government. Meaning the government has stuff that it needs to explain to the public. And through entertainment, he can explain it in a way without directly telling it, meaning show it in a third-person way to get the public acclimated to the information. With also the other part of being high technology. Because keep in mind, from his standpoint, he's a rock star. And his argument is, you need to get information out to the public. Great. I can facilitate that because I have all sorts of contracts in the industry. Great. But keep in mind, what's coming out is information from the government on this, which is essentially what they want you to know, not necessarily the truth. There's a difference in those things. And his point is, I can get this information out. I can disseminate it in a way. The catch is, he has the muscle. And do you believe that the U.S. Army will be pairing with him if this was a bullshit organization? It wouldn't.
I feel you.
And he's gone so far as to say they have materials that they're releasing. They've been releasing documents. They've released the videos. Keep in mind, this was an organization that released those videos that the U.S. military came on and says, the Pentagon says, yes, these are our videos.
Right.
So it's not a BS organization. And to ensure and to nail down that it's not, do you honestly believe that the United States Army would be pairing with a UFO group if they weren't what they said they were? Also, what materials do they have that the U.S. Army believes can be augmented or help their vehicles? Like, we're talking about wild stuff now. Right here. This is their press announcement. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences announced today a cooperative research and development agreement with the U.S. Army and Combat Capabilities Development Command to advance TTSA's material and technology innovations in order to develop enhanced capabilities for Army ground vehicles. TTSA's technology solutions would leverage developments in material sciences, space-time metric engineering, quantum physics, beam energy propulsion, and active camouflage have the potential to enhance survivability and effectiveness of multiple Army systems. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Space-time metric engineering?
Space-time metric
Beamed
engineering.
energy propulsion?
And again, do you believe that the Army... It was the Navy that came out that said, yes, these videos are legit.
Right.
Meaning the Pentagon said, yes, they're legit. It was the Navy that came out and says, yes, we've been experiencing UFOs. These things are real. It was the New York Times and all these other guys who essentially made the point that people have been trying to sweep this under the rug. You need to deal with this. This is a potential threat. Now you have congressmen asking for hearings on this stuff. Grant Cameron says there's supposedly hearings are in the works. And you have what I absolutely thought was going to happen was the military getting involved in this process. This is terrifying. I hope you realize what I mean when I said this is terrifying. It is positive that this stuff gets brought out into the light of day. Yes. It is a second thing, though. Right. I don't want people scaring the shit out the public. Right off the bat, the public has a lot of growing up to do in a very short period of time with this issue. Like, you go from, yeah, this doesn't exist to, oh my God, this doesn't exist. And within a few weeks, all of these Navy groups saying yes. Now you have the Navy, the military going with an organization that is supposed to be dealing with UFOs.
And they're talking about defensive capabilities.
Space-time metric engineering.
Combat.
Yeah.
Capabilities.
Because again, supposedly the materials and the scientists that these guys have and these guys are working on, supposedly they just need cash. Luis Elizondo has said that his organization had came up with equations to explain how the ships that are visiting us work. That's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. Would the Army dump money into a bullshit project?
I think it was Gardner that said that them working with the military decreases his credibility.
Yes. Yes. I agree. But not credibility from the standpoint, though, of that there may be something there. I mean, this is kind of my problem with all of this. I don't doubt that there's something out there. Don't doubt it at all. I take it as an act of faith of sorts. And I do think there's enough evidence to say, yes, there's clearly something. I mean, we have a certain degree of propaganda that we're not supposed to look up, but we're ball hurling through space. That's all we are. That's a real thing. And in the same way, we go and visit our celestial neighbors and all this other stuff. Why do we believe that with our limited sciences of like 100 years, that we got it all? It's down pat. You know, scientists, they say there was a Big Bang, and it's like, all right, and they take it as an act of faith. And you're like, well, what happened before the Big Bang? Nothing. How do you know? Well, I mean, it's like a miracle that they just kind of accept. I mean, look, I don't know as a flat fact. I've never seen a UFO. Well, we have seen UFOs, but I don't know what those were. But I think there's enough evidence to say yes.
Something.
Yes, right. And I don't think the pilots are lying. Like, I don't think they're out there flagrantly lying, nor do I think that all of these pilots in other countries are out there flagrantly lying. I mean, there's not just U.S. pilots have said this stuff, British pilots. So there's that. The catch becomes, within that context, what's true? Who knows? Who knows? And ultimately, he's talking about getting information just from military sources. Like, my fear was that these guys were going to take this information and say, all right, now we need to build new combat systems to deal with some kind of threat that's out there. That was my biggest fear. Like, because think about what we're saying here. Think of the level of damage that our technology currently can do. Nuclear bombs, for example. What could something like this do? They're talking about space-time metric engineering, quantum physics, beam energy propulsion, active camouflage. We have lasers right now. Now the catch becomes, do we have weather engineering technology? What does it mean for space-time metric technology? Like, we're talking about technology.
I'm interested in that beamed energy propulsion.
Well, even warp drive, all of this stuff. Like, this is an order of a magnitude of technology and destructive capabilities that is profound, or has the potential to be profound. I had this idea in my head of this thing flying just over space. The Air Force has always wanted superiority in space. That was always their one. This Star Wars system by Ronald Reagan was one of those efforts, essentially, to have this kind of thing where you can just knock stuff down or attack areas on land. Imagine a laser in space that just is able to hit any target on the ground. Or not just any target on the ground. Think of a ballistic rod that can be dropped in order to, again, hit any target on the ground at the push of a button. It's very specific, very precise hitting of a particular target, meaning the president has an easier time killing in other people. And imagine that technology being in the hands of somebody like Trump. I guess, or even Obama for that matter. I mean, think of what he's been trying to do in Syria. Yeah.
Patrick Seguin says, money for you. If I'm too much on Twitter, let me know.
You don't bother me in the least, dude. You're out there a warrior. Patrick is a warrior, man. No, dude, you're fine. You don't bother me in at least. I often read those tweets. I tend to find myself on Twitter more and more. I use Twitter for my story keeping and that type of stuff to organize my life of sorts when I do these shows.
There's a lot of Twittering going on.
There's a lot of Twittering going on. And for some reason, somehow, I've started using it far more than Facebook. I don't use Facebook at all now.
Facebook at all.
Yeah.
I tag you in very important stuff and you don't respond.
Do you?
No. All right. First story down. What's next up on
the first story I want to do, and this is sad, profoundly sad. I told my wife, she didn't care.
That's not true.
But this is profoundly sad.
Un golpe de Estado.
Evo Morales, Bolivia, has just won an election. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he's won for like a 4th term. The Supreme Court in that country said it was illegal for him to do so. He wins the election in the first round. And to make it plain that he won the election in the first round, this is...
What are you looking at?
I'm looking for...
Somebody
right
said
here.
you had a shit ton of...
browser windows. I do. No evidence Bolivian election results were affected by irregularities or fraud, statistical analysis shows. The OAS is a tool of U.S. foreign policy. Mm-hmm. The OAS comes up and says, there's a problem with the election results. They give no evidence for this. And media just repeats it, runs off to the races. It's a coup attempt. I'm always amazed at the way U.S. media just kind of falls in line with this coup attempt. But they would say, hey, we're not the same thing as state media, but they serve, for all intents and purposes, the same function. He won. He won outright in the first round. The right-wingers in that country refuse to concede.
Accept it.
Yes, they could refuse to accept the results. And they set that country on fire. Now notice the similarities in regards to Venezuela, in regards to Bolivia. Even similarity in the tactics that are used to try to discredit a leader that you can in no way discredit. There's nothing wrong with him in the least. And yet, they're acting as if, oh, this guy's a dictator. This guy's like Maduro. This guy's like...
He was elected.
He was elected. Right? He won. He won. You had people out there doing stuff like this. Look at this. Thugs, terrorists that did not want to accept the election results. These guys were raiding government buildings, raiding TV stations of the government itself. In one case, dragged a woman out, beating her and throwing paint on her and forcing her to resign. It got bad. The military yesterday came out and said, we are backing the people of Honduras, meaning we're not going anywhere. Well, today,
nuestra historia.
Morales,
sin embargo, tengo la obligación de buscar esta paz.
He makes the point that the U.S. was involved in this coup attempt. They called it out early on. There is a coup attempt that is beginning to try to take me out of office. You could see it in the violence that was taking place in regards to his government. The military asked him to step down, and he decided to resign. He's making the point of, I want to heal Bolivia. And in order to heal Bolivia, I will step down and concede. But again, it's one of those things where if the military leaves you, you're stuck. You don't have anywhere to go in that case. The military is the state, or at the very least is the arm or the beating heart of the state.
Right.
And despite him winning the election, and they don't concede. And understand this, it relates directly to Venezuela. Donald Trump backs Juan Guaido. Juan Guaido is, for all intents and purposes, a terrorist in his own country. He's a traitor. He could have been hung if he was in any other country. He accepts foreign aid from an enemy and an adversary of the country of Venezuela. He doesn't concede the election at all. He has no reason to. Every impetus in the world is for him to not do that because he has a superpower backing him with guns, money, thugs, etc.
Right.
The U.S. has pulled this in South America for decades. And the response of the public, for whatever reason, and because it's always been the same. Oh, yeah, that guy was a bad guy. That guy had to go. And they know nothing of what is going on. This guy won. He won. This guy's a lefty. He won. He's the first person of indigenous ranking to win. He paved the roads. He put the first satellite in orbit. He won. He did good things for that country. And the right wing, a right-wing coup, has won. I said yesterday that the wins on the left are few and far between. Sharma Shawant wins. Despite being 8 points down on the night of the election, she ends up winning. $1.5 million Amazon spent against her. $4 million that they spent on all of those candidates. And those candidates won. Amazon lost. Lula leaving prison. Both of those things are good.
Alan says Lula will run again.
I think he will. And I want to talk about that too slightly because that's an interesting political dynamic now. Lula knows that the car wash operation was to put him in prison. Knows it was a flagrant corruption. Now, he knew that beforehand because he knew that he didn't do anything wrong in this case. And all of these other guilty people sitting there with grinning teeth and the prosecutor doesn't touch them.
Right.
And so Lula knows it's a political prosecution. Lula is now out and Lula is still a political force in Brazil. So whatever Bolsonaro is, Lula seems to be potentially an opposition figure in that country once again. The question becomes, does Lula win out on his appeals? And that's when it gets interesting.
Yeah.
But just to close this out, he's resigning and they're calling for new elections. He's not going to be running for those new elections. I don't know what's going to happen to Bolivia in this case. Honduras is on fire. Hillary Clinton said, oh, it wasn't a coup. The military just escorted the president out in his pajamas. It's like, what? What? And the media says, oh, okay, well, it wasn't a coup. Hillary Clinton says it wasn't a coup. Like, I'm always enamored by that. That doesn't weird you out, like the way they would do that. Like, Trump could say, they can call him every name in the book. Jake Tapper would hit him with a trash can, would be hitting him with kitchen sinks, everything. And then Trump gets on stage and says, yeah, we're going to defend the oil. I like oil. Oil is awesome. I love oil. I'm going to be defending the oil. And Jake Tapper would be like, okay, he says he's defending the oil. Fair enough. And it's like, Jake, he's stealing oil from a sovereign nation, Jake. And Jake is like, well, he said he's defending the oil. What are you talking about? But then he would go back to calling him every name in the book for domestic policy.
Parroting.
It's amazing. Like, when you look at the comments under these videos, it's like, oh, that guy was there too long. He won. He won. Whatever you want to say, he won. Nobody took issue with Bloomberg when he amended the New York Constitution in order to stay on. FDR won 4 terms as president of the United States. Massively popular. And if he had the opportunity to run again, he would have won that again. The Republican Party got mad and put constraints on the length of time that a president could run and serve.
Right.
Yes. This is horrible. The guy was a lefty. And they took him down. I made the point that Sanders has to be very wary of this. The last time we had a massive redistribution of wealth was the Civil War. I mean, FDR, yes. But slaves were property. And they were property being ripped from people that identify themselves with that property and holding on to that property. Money is just property. That's all it is. It's a property that we use in order to buy access to things. And we've turned that property into a status symbol. But it's not meant to be a status symbol. It's not meant to be hoarded, if that makes sense. It's meant to do things in society. And you can make a case that says it's meant to do whatever you want it to do. Fair enough. All right, so let's close this one out. This is a sad day, and I hated this. And I think you saw me broke up about this. I was aggravated like nobody's business. The military asked the guy to go, and my thought was, why would you leave? Think for a moment. The protests in Chile, that government's not stepping down. That government has the backing of the U.S. Argentina, that government just lost. Ecuador, that government's not stepping down. That government has the backing of the U.S.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's the key thing is...
And notice something else, the protests. The protests in Chile, millions of people, nonviolent. Ecuador, millions of people, nonviolent. Here, people with bottle rockets, missile launchers, thugs, killers, people who are beating people. Like, I guess I'm making the point to you that a U.S.-backed operation is violent. Venezuela and this are taking a similar turn. But if you look back at El Salvador and Nicaragua, it's similar items.
Yeah.
Guatemala, they murdered one of the generals that wouldn't toe their line in regards to flipping the country over for a toppling. I guess I'm saying this is not new. It's just their cell phones. And the world seems to be smaller than the world used to be. This bugged the shit out of me, even though I don't live there. I felt like it was a loss. I just felt like a loss. You weren't all that supportive in this. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry, but
I resigned my post as president.
You're outraged a lot. I can't keep up emotionally.
I resigned my post as president, Morales said in a televised address, capping off a fast-moving events in which several ministers and senior officials quit as support for the Latin American's longest-serving president crumbled. I want to tell you, brothers and sisters, that the fight does not end here. The poor, the social movements will continue this fight for equality and peace, he said. The commander of the Bolivian armed forces earlier called on the embattled Morales to resign. I wouldn't be shocked if his palms were greased. Wouldn't be shocked in the least. You know, part of the reason that money walks in these places is because of poverty. A place that is poor, people will be willing to do more things from just out of desperation. In which case you can compel a group of poor people to kill and beat another group of poor people.
Right.
In this case, the U.S. hated him and wanted him out. And the other governments that are now embattled themselves, that our media don't necessarily seem to devote too much attention to, but they don't go anywhere. But he had to step down. That's astonishing. After analyzing the internal conflict situation, we asked the president of the state to renounce his presidential mandate, allowing for peace to be restored and maintenance of stability for the good of Bolivia. Now, the question becomes, what happens next? Who leads? Are they going to have another election? Is he going to wait out?
He's not running, right?
He said he's not running, but he says he has a constitutional responsibility to serve out his term. So the question becomes, what happens next? And does the right wing accept the next election result if they lose that one also? Like, this is a problem. And this problem doesn't get resolved as long as Trump is in office and there may be lefties who these guys want to put in office. It is none of our business to do this. Like, this is utterly astonishing that we're involved in this process. Just saying. It's painful. I hurt for them, babe.
I understand.
No, you don't. You don't, but it's okay. I love you still. All right, so let's go to the next story.
Also, that was an update requested from Michael Williams. He was asking about what was going on with Bolivia.
I did a video on it earlier, but it changed so fast. I mean, initially it was he was calling for another election. I got to be honest, I don't think I would have even done that. I mean, I won. Those other countries don't seem to budge on this case.
Caleb says these countries aren't poor or underdeveloped. He said they are overexploited.
Yes.
Because you were talking about the poverty and stuff like that in countries.
I know, but it's like saying Africa is not a poor country. Yes, technically Africa has all sorts of riches. The people who are living there are poor. Could be, let's not fuck around with semantics. He knows what I'm saying. Just saying, yo.
Language.
All right, so the next one I want to go to is one that Luca Clemente asked.
Luca.
Dealing with Roger Stone.
Is Luca here? I haven't seen him.
I don't know. But Luca asked, basic question. What on earth is Roger Stone charged with? Now, Roger Stone is supposed to be the guy who's the go-between, the conduit between Donald Trump and the Russians.
Right.
That's the conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Problem. Roger Stone, regardless of what Roger Stone might have wanted, had no conduit to WikiLeaks. The New York Times even makes this point. Bannon, in the New York Times, talking about this, makes the point that, he was supposed to be our guy, and we were supposed to be playing dirty, meaning we were willing to play dirty. But Roger Stone didn't have any links. What they're charging Roger Stone with is lying, meaning not telling them who his go-between guy is. Obstruction of justice, because he tried to threaten one of the witnesses after the witness was going to testify, and withholding evidence, meaning there was information that they supposedly had.
Gotcha. Just
so we're very clear, the New York Times itself makes a very clear point. Where is it? All right. Here we are. Mr. Stone faces half a dozen trials in the last 2 weeks. Advisor, longtime friend. Where is it? Effectively, the New York Times makes the point that Roger Stone, even though he was supposed to be the conduit between these two things,
didn't know shit.
Had no way of getting the information. When asked who his sources were, supposedly, he said his source was Credico and Corso. Now, to be clear, Credico is a comedian. Corso is an out-in-the-day, singing in the lilies conspiracy theorist, and acknowledged as such. So one guy who's essentially known to be an actor, a jinxter of sorts, a trickster, dealing with a conspiracy theorist and a comedian. The comedian gets on stand and says, I don't know anything about the WikiLeaks stuff. He says, yes, I sent the drunken tweet, but I had no back channel to WikiLeaks. He's very clear. Credico is very clear. I had no back channel to WikiLeaks. Nothing to see here, folks. Even if he might have known something, it doesn't seem that he had any information, nor was he able to get any information from WikiLeaks. Credico makes the point that the reason that he was being threatened is because he could expose that Roger Stone didn't know shit. Like, the threat wasn't because Roger Stone had all of this information and everything else. It was because Roger Stone didn't have that information. He threatened him, his friend, and his dog. He threatened all of them. Right here. Look at this. Throughout the campaign, Stone presented himself to the Trump campaign as a conduit for inside information from WikiLeaks. One former campaign official told the FBI that Mr. Stone not only seemed to predict WikiLeaks' actions, but that he also took credit for the timing of disclosures. But Mr. Stone later insisted that he never had any inside information from WikiLeaks, and his claims were simply posture, bluff, and hype. Prosecutors claimed that in 2017, Mr. Stone lied to the House committee for both of his communications of the Trump campaign and about his efforts to obtain information from Julian Assange and the founder of WikiLeaks. Now, to give the technical charges, because again, Stone didn't have anything. Like, when Credico was asked, Credico was very clear, I was not a back channel. I didn't have any information.
Right.
The New York Times makes the point. He lied and didn't seem to have any information. If Credico didn't have any information, if the conspiracy theorists, of course he didn't have any information, then what's his name was BSing. He was bluffing. He didn't have any data. The WikiLeaks stuff was coming out on a particular schedule. And even though he tried to get it, there was nobody that had access to it.
Right.
Credico did try to get Julian Assange on the show, but that wasn't the same thing as him trying to, or getting information from Assange. Right here.
7 counts of obstruction?
Yeah. Stone indicted in January on 7 counts of obstruction, lying to Congress during September 2017 testimony, and witness tampering. The charges all relate to the efforts to reach WikiLeaks in 2016 over publication of hacked emails that could hurt the presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and the candidate Donald Trump, a friend of his. He pleaded not guilty and is set for trial. Now, just so we're very clear, this is not about a conspiracy with WikiLeaks. There's a difference. Like, they're not charging him with working with WikiLeaks.
No, this is obstruction.
This is lying about his go-between.
Yeah.
A go-between that for the most part didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. So
you lied about something that didn't exist.
Right. He wanted it. To his credit, he did want it. And he thought Credico could get it for him. Credico couldn't get it for him. And he thought Corsi, I have no idea why he thought Corsi could get anything for him. But he didn't have what he said he had. So this fizzles away. Nevertheless, he's still in this
You're
trial.
in trouble for saying you had what you didn't have.
Yes. He could still be prosecuted. So
well, he lied in testimony. Now, Rachel Maddow is still doubling down on this. Still acting as if he is the go-between. WikiLeaks has made it very clear Russia was not our source. Very clear. No ifs and buts. There's not a source. She's still doubling down on this very specific point. I mean, that's sad, though. Come on. That's so sad. My system is freezing a little bit. It's because you got 17 different windows open.
Well, I'm closing them as we go. Oh, here we are. Right here. Come on. All right.
Slow. Okay, there we go.
Phone records are the first concrete suggestion that Mr. Trump may have direct role in campaign efforts to benefit from Russia's hidden hand in the election. The phone call between Mr. Trump and Mr. Stone were not described in the version of Mr. Mueller's report that was publicly released last spring. She's talking about Stone. She's talking about Roger Stone. She's still digging this ditch. Like, this is Aaron Mattei has been trolling this like nobody's business. Because Aaron Mattei's point is, you guys are having a trial over somebody who bullshit you into believing that he had something that he didn't actually have. And that the people who you say are key witnesses, Credico and Corso, one guy's an out-and-date conspiracy theorist and the other guy openly says, I knew nothing about this. I had nothing. I wasn't his guy. It's amazing. I find this to be amazing. But this is going to trial, so this is going to be a fantabulous trial. Yeah, this is going to be a fantabulous trial, to say the least. Fantabulous. All right, so let's go to the next one.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right.
What's up next?
All right, so let's do Tulsi. Now, one of my subscribers asked about Tulsi's new bills.
Yes. Dun, 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 dun. This was a recap from last week. Nathaniel Farrier says Tulsi Gabbard introduced 2 new bills last week. 1 to end the secrecy of 9/11 and ties with Saudi Arabia, and 2 a withdrawal bill from Syria.
Yes. Essentially, her thing is, if you haven't been directed by Congress to engage in these wars, then you need to bring those troops back. Meaning all troops that are not there at the discretion of Congress. Well, none of them are there at the discretion of Congress.
Right.
Trump kind of pulled this on his own. This is the article. Some of these articles look like that I was talking about prior. Bannon is talking about this. And when Bannon testified, it says, let's see. For weeks beforehand, Bannon said Mr. Stone had implied that he had a relationship with WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange, that could benefit Trump. He was the access point to Julian Assange, Mr. Bannon said, who was dressed in black, spoke in clipped tones, frowned almost continually. It was natural that I would reach out to him. In fact, Mr. Stone, a former campaign advisor, had no real ties to WikiLeaks, although he repeatedly tried to dispatch intermediaries to obtain stolen emails or information about what they would be when they would be released.
Wait, I thought we were looking at Tulsi's.
We are, but I just wanted to nail that down because I couldn't find the exact article. And I was like,
okay.
I just wanted people to be able to see.
It is a real thing.
He had no ties.
That was on November 8th. Okay.
He had no ties. Break it, you buy it.
Sorry.
Break it, you buy it. Oops. Break it, you buy it, dog.
Didn't I buy it?
Break it, you buy it. No, I bought it. No, you did not. To be fair, she's bought a lot of stuff in here. That's not one of it. All right, so let's go to Tulsi. Tulsi puts out 2 bills. Now, Tulsi's campaign has pivoted a bit. So, somebody told Tulsi, look, the war thing in and of itself is not enough. You got to go further. And she has. And she's made a tweak that is still honest to her original intent. Okay. That tweak is, get us out of Syria. 1. I mean, you've been calling me an Assad apologist for the whole time, so at this point, I have no hedges against doing that bill. But also 9/11, meaning open the books to 9/11. Release the documents about the Saudis' involvement in 9/11. Not redacted, release all of it. Her argument is that somebody hit us on 9/11. We've been in those wars for 18, 19 years as a result of that hit on 9/11. Yeah. The least the American public should have is an honest assessment of what is in those files and whether or not Saudi Arabia should remain an ally, especially if Saudi Arabia was intimately involved in hitting us on 9/11. That's a basic point. I don't know how that point is argued with. Is there a perspective that I'm missing that says that's wrong? I'm imagining that, there's going to be somebody who argues that the public shouldn't see this. The public should give their lives.
We're not familiar with that argument.
But somebody's going to say it.
Yeah, somebody's always got,
Yeah. But I guess my point is,
counter argument.
Is somebody really going to make the argument that, yes, the public should be able to give their lives for something and be in those wars for 18 years and all of the havoc that stuff is caused, but be in the dark about it? I agree with her. I don't know how anybody can disagree with her. Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard joined relatives of September 11 victims on Tuesday in demanding federal government release the findings of the investigation into the Saudis' role into the attacks on 9/11. We are 18 years removed from this terrible crime and the victims of this crime, the families who are here today. The American people deserve all the evidence to fully come to light, the Hawaii congressman said in New York City. She said the victims' families want the truth and they deserve that truth.
I agree.
I honestly agree. She said she was seeking not a highly redacted version of the information that makes no sense, but a declassified version that actually speaks to the truth of what led to the attacks on 9/11. Gabbard says she would reintroduce House Resolution 663 from 2017, which would demand the documents related to September 11 be declassified to the greatest extent possible as soon as to provide answers to family survivors and families of the victims and the people of the United States. Again, I have a hard time disagreeing with her. Yeah. She also put out a secondary bill. Now, the secondary bill had to do with pulling our troops out of Syria. Straightforward, very clear in her intentions. I mean, after all, she did the Stop Army Terrorists bill. Very clear on what it is. Tulsi Gabbard introduced a resolution to the House of Representatives on October 31st titled Directing the President Pursuant to Section 5C of the War Powers Resolution to remove the United States Armed Forces from hostilities in the Syrian Arab Republic that have not been authorized by Congress. Tell me what you really feel.
That's pretty much it.
Tell me what you really feel. They used to get on me because I used to name my variables like really long names. Like
your YouTube show titles?
Yeah, right. Well, yes. But but the rule was always explain in the name. Let the name explain what it is. So if this is a variable that deals with height, I am the height of, whatever. I am height. This is some, whatever, however you want to name it. But to be descriptive as to what it is so someone can look at it and identify what it is without having to read through all this text.
I feel you.
Tulsi Gabbard is doing the same. If anybody is talking about her bill on the press, on CNN, they have to say all of this. And the American public is going to say, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that. The idea of the bill is to remove any troops in Syria that do not have congressional approval to be there, which is all of them. The resolution says Congress has not declared war with respect to or provided any specific statutory authorization for the United States military participation in any activity related to securing, guarding, possessing, profiting off, developing oil fields in Syria. All of these actions are unconstitutional. Yes. That's what impeachment should be on.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, that's what impeachment should be on. The resolution also points out that Trump's new plan to stay in Syria to secure the oil is a flagrant violation of international law. The resolution says oil, natural resources, and land in Syria belong to the Syrian people, not the United States. I said as much. And when people ask me, why do you support Gabbard being in the race even though you're a Sanders person? Right there. Right there. She says stuff like that. Nobody else does. She says, meaning nobody else would just say the objective truth. No one says it. The media ignores it. I mean, look at what happened in Bolivia. And the media is like, well, I mean, those faulty elections. There were no faulty elections. They just go along with whatever the narrative is. Assad gasses people. Did he? Well, I mean, once, maybe. Well, what happened after he gave up all this stuff? Well, he got it from somewhere else. Okay. Did the militants, the terrorists, have access to him? Yes. Is it possible that they did it? Would they have more of a reason to do it? Meaning, if Assad has all of his property back, 90% of the territory back, what reason, what justification would he have to do it? And they say, he's a bad guy. It's the bad guy argument. It's always the bad guy argument. It's like missing the point that you killed 500,000 people in that war. Clap of the hands to Gabbard for this. I agree with both of these. Now, whether this is enough to propel her, interesting note, though, she's going to be in the November debates.
Yeah.
She is going to be in the November debates. And at some point, the subject matter has to turn over to foreign policy. I mean, Israel hasn't really come up as a topic of discussion. Sanders has brought up, making a point of saying, why do we continuously give Israel all of this money without any strings on the money that we give them? Yes. Now, I'm waiting for people to call him a self-hating Jew. And they have already. There was somebody on Twitter that did the same thing. I called it within like an hour or 2 hours of that taking place. Yeah. So shout out to Tulsi for this. One issue with Tulsi. When it's time, when your days are over, when Jesus is calling you home in this race, you got to support Sanders. That's my one caveat. I support her being in this race.
Okay.
Full stop. I don't necessarily need to agree with everything that Tulsi pushes forth because my agreement with her is very specific in regards to foreign policy. That's just the way I look at it. I want her in that race pushing Sanders to the left on foreign policy. That's why I think it's a positive. It goes beyond just the horse race of being in the race itself. It goes to larger politics. By the same token, if she's saying she's going all the way to the convention, that's a fail for me. That's a fail for me.
Because that pretty much implies that you will not be
endorsing Sanders.
Right. Sanders.
And the catch is, if Sanders lost and you won, he would endorse you. He would endorse you. He would do it in a heartbeat. So that's my only issue with her on this front. I'm not one of those people that voter shame. I don't believe in that stuff. People vote for all sorts of reasons, and those reasons are right or wrong depending upon how it lines up to objective reality. People fuck up, but there are other things sometimes that impinge upon the reason people vote. It's not for me to say yay or nay. I could dislike that choice. I could greatly dislike that choice, but it's, people could dislike my choice in voting also. However, I would hope that when her days are over, she would, yes, I support Sanders in this, in the same way Gravel supported her and Sanders in this. That's all. I know her supporters are like, no, man, she needs to go to the convention for some reason.
No.
I don't think so. I support Sanders. So, there's that. So, Warren has a problem.
Not Warren again.
She has a problem, dog.
I'm sick of Beth.
You sick of Beth?
I'm sick of Beth.
The catch here is Warren came out with a healthcare plan. And, with Warren's healthcare plan, she deviated with Sanders on this.
Medicare for all.
Well, she didn't want to say that it would cost taxes on employers. She didn't want to say it. So when she's on stage, she got into this weird, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. They got me in a box. Because Sanders would just say yes. And if Sanders would just say yes, he wrote the bill. Why don't you say yes? Like, that's the problem with Sanders. Like, Sanders is not attacking her at all, but just his disposition attacks her. I've said this before. That
she's got to be honest, and she is not good at that.
I don't think she's good at being honest on this stuff. And so it's like, all right, you're for Medicare for all? Yes, I'm for Medicare for all. All right. He wrote the bill. Yes, he wrote the bill. Great. Our taxes are going to go up for the middle class. Yes, but the middle class is going to see a savings increase that is going to be more from the standpoint of what they're bringing home than they would have seen in a generation, even though they may see a modest tax increase. But this allows us to have a progressive tax, so you're not paying that bill by yourself, and all of your other bills that you typically go away.
Right.
Then they go to Warren. All right, Warren. Are the middle class taxes going to go up? Well, I mean, what matters is savings. He said taxes are going to go up. Why can't you say taxes are going to go up? That's essentially the way the debate went.
Listen.
And then he goes to Biden, and Biden says she has to be honest with the American people. Goes to Amy Klobuchar, she has to be honest with the American people. And they're like, Sanders is being honest. Why can't you be honest? They used Sanders as a club to hit her when she deviated. I still say what she should have just said was, yes, under Medicare for all plan taxes will go up. She should have rolled that shit till the wheels came off.
She's adamant.
But she doesn't want to get caught saying that. That's what it is. She just doesn't want to get caught saying it. She doesn't want to say, yes, middle class taxes will go up. Here's the catch, though. People will say, okay, he's being honest with me. That's a plus.
And they'll look at her and say, we don't know what the hell is going on.
We don't know what's going on with this. And if this guy wrote it, it seems like you're being dishonest with me.
Right.
Like,
why aren't you saying the same thing that he's saying if you support
Medicare for all?
Medicare for all.
And so she had to work herself into a pretzel. And in working herself into a pretzel to try to explain how middle class taxes were not going to go up. Now,
when she started talking about employee.
Well, it's dodgy. I mean, because ultimately she's hiding the ball. Like, she's trying to get the employer to essentially pay it, but the employer is going to take that out on the employee.
Right.
It's going to cut his wages.
If I got to pay an extra $9,000 for every individual that I hire, we're going to hire less individuals, and they're not going to be getting paid as
much.
The your salary is going to go up or going to go down. And we're going to say that it now includes your
healthcare.
Right.
Because think about it for the moment. If your employer had to pay for your healthcare and he had to pay $9,000, what if you were only making $20,000? Is he going to hire you? That's almost half of what he was going to pay you in wages. What is he going to do? He's going to knock your wages down. Now, Warren doesn't want to say, yes, the federal government is going to increase taxes, but instead she hid the ball and had the taxes increase by the employers themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She's hiding the ball. And her point, and their point was, the only reason you would do this is because the media won't ask the follow-up question of, aren't you hiding the ball? And that these guys won't quite get it. Warren was asked the question, well, there were two questions. One, she was really touchy about a question on racial justice. They asked her whether or not, I'll let you see it for yourself. They asked her whether or not there should be a change in the order of states, because Iowa and New Hampshire, being the first two states, are the most whitest states in America. And they were like, look, should we change the order of operations here? South Carolina, we're sitting in South Carolina, that will be next. Should we do something that matches a little bit of America? Listen to her response. She gets really testy about this. Like, testy is an understatement. Come on. What's going on? And this is a fair question. Amy Goodman is not.
Yeah, someone just asked
Let me just, before you finish, are you actually going to ask me to sit here and criticize? Iowa and New Hampshire. Wait, let me just, before you finish, are you actually going to ask me to sit here and criticize Iowa and New Hampshire?
No, I'm asking about the order.
No, that is what Iowa and New Hampshire
let me
are
just
all about.
ask. They're two of the whitest states in the country. And then we moved to South Carolina with a very significant population of people of color. And it means the candidates spend so much of their time catering to those first two states. Overall, do you think that should change?
Look, I'm just a player in the game on this one. And I am delighted to be in South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't. Do you see how testy she was?
Wait, what? I'm confused.
Let's hear this one more time, just so we're clear.
You have Iowa and New Hampshire.
Wait, let me just, before you finish, are you actually going to ask me to sit here and criticize Iowa and New Hampshire?
No, I'm asking about the order.
No, that is what Iowa and New Hampshire
let me
are all
just
about.
ask. They're two of the whitest states in the country. And then we moved to South Carolina with a very significant population of people of color. And it means the candidates spend so much of their time catering to those first two states. Overall, do you think that should change?
Look, I'm just a player in the game on this one. And I am delighted to be in South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Watch this. Watch this.
Thank you. Speaking about racial injustice, do you think the order of...
She got testy on this. And then the woman who wants big structural change is like, I'm just a player in this game, dog. I'm just a player in this game. Now, perspectives are relative. First point. I can take a perspective that you may not necessarily like because I may have all sorts of reasons for taking that perspective. Assume for the moment I am being legitimate, meaning I'm not bullshitting or just being overt and partisan. As an African American, and being in South Carolina, I'm not there, but if I was in South Carolina, I may take an African-American perspective on stuff, meaning an Afrocentric perspective of, it is not fair that the two whitest states gets this much attention in a country that is multinational, multiracial.
Understand.
And that perspective is not wrong. Amy Goodman can ask a question from that perspective of, should we persist in the order in this way? Just because it's tradition doesn't necessarily mean it should always persist. Like, tradition is not a shield against changing things, even though from our human standpoint, we tend to cling to it.
Right.
So, and Elizabeth Warren's, are you going to ask me to criticize Iowa and New Hampshire? No. Asking whether or not the order should change is not a criticism of Iowa and New Hampshire. What does that have to do? Like, if Iowa and New Hampshire is an object, how is asking if the order of those objects should be changed? How is that a criticism of the object? If I was writing program and I had New Hampshire and Iowa and I said, all right, I want to now instantiate South Carolina first. How is that a criticism of the other two? And she gets so testy about this. I couldn't tell if it's because she don't want anyone from Iowa hearing her answer this in kind of an affirmative. I don't know if it's, she has a white base. I mean, her base is majority white. And she doesn't want to, I guess, piss them off. I don't know why she's this edgy and testy on this.
So sensitive about this one.
Yeah. And then when she's walking back, she's like, yeah. 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 I like it. I was going back and I was like, yeah. That's what she did. That's what she did. Look at this. She was like, yeah.
She's like, yeah.
All right, I'm okay with you, dreadlock man. Yeah.
Speaking about race...
Well, we couldn't hear because you were talking with the drama. She was like,
yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, right, bitch. Don't stand up for her. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. That clip tripped me out. She was triggered on this. She was triggered. I gotta be honest. I didn't get this at all. I didn't understand her animosity on this one. Any words? I don't like her in this race. I'm bitter about 2016. I'll be honest about it. I'm one of those people. This is my channel. I can be bitter if I want to. That's kind of the way I look at it. Some people are like, no, I'm not bitter, and they just try to hide it. And I don't want to hide my bitterness. I want my bitterness to show. I am bitter about 2016. I think people who are Sanders supporters should be bitter about 2016. I don't think that's wrong. Now, and the reason I say that, Sanders tried to get Warren to run in 2016, and I would have vociferously supported her if she did. Vociferously supported her if she did. She said no. Then she turns around and supports Clinton. On top of that, then on top of that, in 2020, she then decides to run, knowing that her guy was going to run. Meaning, if she's just going to
that's it.
But if you're going to ape Sanders,
not her guy.
But if you're going to ape Sanders like this, then what is the point of you being there? Nobody ever answers that for me. Like, if you're just going to ape Sanders and pretend to be Sanders, I'm going to be a cuddlier version of Sanders. Well, why do I need the cuddlier version? Just give me the real thing. I want the guy that's been doing it for 40 years. I was listening to an argument between Cenk and Kyle on this. And Cenk was trying to argue for Elizabeth Warren.
I'm sure.
And it seems maddening. I'm like, how are you having this argument on your channel? Like, your channel is supposed to be home of the progressives. Sam Cedar is online. Michael Brooks is online. Meaning, both of these guys are Sanders supporters through and through. And they have been using their channels to be on it. What the fuck is wrong with the Young Turks? How are you not on board? Everybody on the same page with us. And how are you arguing as if these two things are one-to-one? Like, they're not a one-to-one. That's the maddening thing about it. And Kyle, they were like, he's like, well, she does all this good work behind the scenes. Well, I don't see it. I'm sorry, dog. I give her credit for the financial bureau that she created. And I agree that she hates bankers. But that's where it ends.
Yeah.
That's where it ends for me. I don't believe she's for Medicare for all. I don't believe she can harness a movement. I don't believe she's going to get up every morning and every night with all of the policy proposals. I think she evolved on that stuff at the presidency, meaning I don't think she believes it. I think she's, to some degree, an Obama on this stuff. Not to mention, I don't have to wonder because the real thing is in the race. Like, that was the maddening part about this. Is like, why are you having this argument and this discussion? Why isn't your channel, who is a political channel, this notion of news, don't tell me about that. This channel has become a propaganda outlet, just like MSNBC and these other networks, for a softer Democratic Party. That's what they are. But you should be supporting Sanders. I don't understand how there's multiple lines of debate on this subject now. It's like everybody should be on board. Everybody should be on the same page. And I don't see this stuff as a one-to-one. They did a massive disservice to their channel when they supported Hillary Clinton. A massive disservice. Meaning they were going to sheepdog all these people into now voting for Clinton after their guy was cheated. He ran out and said, we need to throw our bodies in the streets if Trump tries to fire Mueller. What happened when they were stealing your democracy itself? Mum. They did a massive disservice. Yes, I'm a little bit bitter. When I go after TYT, I think a lot of it derives from that. It's like you betrayed all of this stuff, like that you supposedly believed in. And I don't buy the Russiagate stuff. Cenk does. He still believes that Trump is working and talking behind the scene and Mueller is and Putin is whispering stuff in his ear. This was the nonsense that he was spewing to Aaron Matei.
Yeah.
And even beyond that point, when despite not being able to verify that stuff, he still goes and digs the ditch. And with this, arguing on behalf of Warren, I don't see these two quantities as a one-to-one. One guy believes that one guy can harness the public itself. The other person is literally aping that guy. And whereas that guy has been believing this stuff for 40 years and has been thinking about this stuff for 40 years, the other person is a Johnny-come-lately that I'm sorry, I can't trust. She is under the thumb of the Democratic Party. First point. When Standing Rock happened, a woman that called herself a Native American for 40 years stood by on Thanksgiving while Native Americans, real indigenous people, were getting their heads bashed in. When the Palestinians were being killed and slaughtered, what do you think the response of Tlaib was? Rashid Tlaib. She's the Palestinian member of Congress. She flipped out. Why do you think AOC hates Trump so much? Because he's putting their people in cages. What about Warren? Why wasn't that?
She protects the white
why
people.
Why wasn't that leap of I can't be restrained by the party's ethics. They're hurting my people. They're hurting my people. Where was that? Where was that impetus? What was that impetus? It wasn't there because she's as Native American as Pitsu. I've said that before.
You don't know where Pitsu came from. Stop using my baby as a reference. I feel you.
I'm just saying.
She's a chameleon.
She can't be trusted. When segregation, when they were talking about, what is it, the reparations, what did she do? Is that where the wind blowing? Yes. I'm now for reparations. What does it mean? Fuck knows. But I'm for it.
Sounds good, too.
Sounds good. I'm for it. The money in the primary thing. Like, I guess my point is all of this is a certain degree of flagrant dishonesty and trying to get around. I'm a grassroots funded candidate. But you're not. Joe Biden says it every time he opens his mouth. Joe Biden is like, she padded her campaign with $11 million. He says it all the time. Sanders doesn't. She is flagrantly dishonest. And I have to, and dishonest in a way that is deceptive, even in not answering questions. When Emma Vigeland asked her, hey, why did you vote for Trump's military budget? She says, so you think the military budget needs to be less than yes, I agree. Wait, that wasn't my question.
That's not what we're talking about.
She even called it corrupt. And Emma Vigeland never said, so wait, you voted for a corrupt military budget? Why? These are different quantities. Sanders was out there on Standing Rock. Sanders has been out there for Medicare for All for like 40 years. Sanders has been getting dragged away by cops when Warren was still a Republican, going after brown people.
Right. That's what somebody just said when Warren was a Republican.
Yeah. I guess I'm saying the notion that these two quantities are the same. I can't know as a flat fact what's going on in a person's head. So trust becomes that much more important in a political process. And we are at a point where I think is an inflection point. That's why I think everybody needs to be on the same page. This notion that you're pretending that these two quantities are the same, it should be off the table. I'm sorry, it should be. If it was me. But keep in mind, I consider the Young Turks a political arm. I don't consider them a media arm. Yeah, they're not the news in that sense.
Marcos says, I have a gut feeling Warren is going to crash the next debate. She won't be able to handle it.
I think the pressure that's going to hit Warren is you're being dishonest.
Republican.
Well, I think the pressure for Warren is she has to defend her Medicare plan because she has fleshed out a plan. Like, she's now fleshed out a document that says this is how we're going to pay for something. And so now Joe Biden can say, all right, on this page, this problem. And by the way,
it is problematic.
It is problematic because she has to now defend something. Sanders' argument was, look, your savings are going to go up. Meaning the amount of money you're going to bring home is going to go up. Even though I don't know all of it, these are the motley crew of savings that I believe we're going to get. He left it somewhat ambiguous because he realized that Congress writes the laws, not the president. The president can set the agenda in regards to what the president wants to do, but ultimately it is Congress that makes the determination on how that stuff gets written. So he left it ambiguous. Warren, under pressure,
specifics,
just like the Native American thing, mind you. Because think back, when she was being ribbed by Trump,
she went and got a DNA test.
She went to get a DNA test.
She came back. Pressure.
Right. And now she did it again with the Medicare bill. She should have just said, I'm with Sanders. Yeah, she did. She did. I'm looking for the very specific question that Warren was asked. And, right here. So this is Warren being asked a question about Joe Biden's attacks. Joe Biden is attacking her, essentially saying, look, this plan is unworkable. Essentially what other people would say. Stressed. She is stressed because she now has to defend a plan that she never was on board for. I don't believe she was on board for Medicare for All. I honestly believe that what she was going to do was pivot the moment that she got out of the general. And whatever she came up with, they would have said that's Medicare for All. They're talking about Medicare for All not as if it's a bill. They're talking about it as if this kind of ambiguous, hazy thing. So now, she got pinned down. Somebody stabbed her in the foot. All right. You said you're for Medicare for All. Fine. Defend your plan. And now she has to defend a plan that I don't think she entirely fully believed in. And she has to defend it with numbers because she's given specifics into how she believes she's going to pay for it, despite the fact that this bill is a showpiece. Congress writes the laws. Let's hear her. She does look stressed.
Are you saying that today Joe Biden called your plan mathematical gymnastics and said it's impossible to pay for Medicare for All without middle-class tax increases? What is your response to him?
Joe Biden called her plan mathematical gymnastics. Right.
Wow. So, the cost of Medicare is backed up and was determined. Let me start again.
Get it right.
At this point, she's not doing single payer any favors. When she was on the debate stage, she was. But that was because she acted as if him and I are one to one.
Medicare for all.
Right. And everybody was fighting on the same page. Then it's like, well, the guy who wrote it said that you have to do this because the other countries around the world do this. And if you're being serious about it, this is how you have to do it. Why aren't you saying that? In which case, she comes up with this fantastic bill that tries to get rid of this notion of a middle class tax increase. Now she has to explain in terms of her bill, not just in terms of a subjective thing.
Yeah.
I kept saying this.
With
she
specifics.
believes it in a subjective way.
When Bernie had that interview and they asked him to tell me specifically how my tax is going to go up, and he was like, "Look, I can't tell you right now.
I'm trying to pay for the damn
exact
thing.
number."
Yeah.
And you were like, "Is that bad?" And I was like, "No, because I don't think he needs to put a specific number to every specific individual." And now you lay out a plan.
Right.
You got to answer some questions now.
And that plan has to live up to it. And the left has been hitting this plan also. Sanders' thing is, I'm trying to figure out how to pay for the damn thing. That was his thing. And I was like, oh, God, I hate that answer. But the answer, again, is honest. He's like, look, I'm giving you some of the taxes that can pay for this stuff. And we will pay for everything that we do. Now, the reporter was trying to get him, will the budget deficit go up? And Sanders wouldn't answer that question. He shouldn't answer that question. Nancy Pelosi is talking about pay-go. Republicans have put trillions on the deficit. And the moment that you say, hey, let's give everybody health care, you complain about the deficit, fuck you. That's where I'm at. That's where I hope Sanders would be at. But he can't say that.
I think he should.
But think about it for the moment. When Obama was in office, they kept saying, oh, God, we can't put another penny on the deficit. I'm going to bleed on the flag if there's another red penny that goes on the deficit. Do you remember that? They were literally talking about going over the debt ceiling. Trump gets it elected. $9 trillion immediately goes on the deficit. $9 trillion. I looked at them and was like, oh, this is a fucking circus. This isn't real. Honestly, it's hard. I couldn't reconcile what I was seeing in American politics with what I was taught as a child in regards to what American politics was. And even looking at it from a historical context, it doesn't really get across what politics is. And maybe politics was different back then. I don't know what it is. It is more cutthroat. And it's cutthroat in a way that doesn't take the overarching system into account, meaning they're willing to crash the entirety of the system in order to take power.
Yeah.
It's become that desperate. Warren is not looking good on this question. Medicare for all, the plan that she supposedly represents. Not. She looks stressed. Look at this picture. She looks remarkably stressed. Sanders doesn't look this way. Sanders doesn't look this way at all.
He just had a goddamn heart attack.
Yeah, right. I know, right? He's out there running around like a spring chicken. This is a look of a woman that needs to explain how are you going to do a plan without middle class taxes going up.
Let's see.
Agriculture planned mathematical gymnastics and said it's impossible to pay for Medicare for all without middle class tax increases. What is your response to him?
Wow. So, the cost of Medicare is backed up and was determined. Let me start again. The cost projections that we have on Medicare were authenticated by President Obama's head of Medicare. Our revenue projections were authenticated by President Obama's labor economist. And the employer contribution is already part of the Affordable Care Act that President Obama put into the Affordable Care Act. So if Joe Biden doesn't like that, I'm just not sure where he's going. We're building.
If she say "oh" one more time,
for all, we're building on the Affordable Care Act. You know,
one of Obama's guys said it was like buying a unicorn with a unicorn. That line is the funniest, most derisive line. Bless you.
Thank you.
She's buying a unicorn with another unicorn. That is brutal.
Democrats
she's uncomfortable.
are not going to win.
She is.
By repeating Republican talking points and by dusting off
And by the way,
the points of view of the giant insurance companies and the giant drug companies who don't want to see any change in the law that will bite into their profits. But if anyone wants to defend keeping those high profits for insurance companies and those high profits for drug...
All right, so this is a dodge. She often does this. This is when you watch her work. Like, that's how she's able to get
deflect.
Well, or move. It's like a pivot.
Yeah.
So she's eventually talking about something else long enough where the person just moves on to something else. I can show you multiple videos where she does this. So either with Uger, Vigeland, yeah. But if you notice, there's a slight change. She's being told what Joe Biden has said. Joe Biden essentially said, this is mental gymnastics or mathematical gymnastics. She goes with one way. She says, okay, all right, this doesn't work. And then she goes to explain it. She's really uncomfortable. And then it moves to, these are Republican talking points. And if somebody wants to justify, etc. But nobody's really asking you or postulated that somebody justifies anything. Somebody is just pointing at her plan and saying this plan is unworkable. Meaning, I am clearly for Medicare for all. And if I say I think your plan is unworkable and have bad incentives, it's not me justifying the insurance market. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I mean. It's a slight pivot. She seemed really uncomfortable answering this question. And I think the difference is if you're just arguing Medicare for all without a bill, without a plan that you've attached your name to, that's easier. That's esoteric. Mm-hmm. If you're arguing it within context of the actual plan that people can attack directly and point stuff in the plan and say, hey, this is here. Well, that's different. And that becomes more difficult to argue.
And bullshit your way out of.
Yeah. It's uncomfortable. I think she's just massively uncomfortable in this interview.
Someone said, imagine her doing that on stage against Trump.
Because guess what's going to happen? Trump is going to say, this plan is unworkable. And she's going to cut jobs. She's going to cut wages. She's going
to stammer and stutter. Wait, let me start over.
And she's going to have to explain it in the context of that plan, unless she abandons the plan. And if she abandons the plan, then that's a whole other, your credibility goes out the window. This was horrible for her. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, maybe her defense on this just comes out the woodwork and is on point. And I'm like, whew, that shit was hot fire, dog. Maybe I was wrong on this. I'm giving up, I'm going to comic books. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Sanders has been making distinctions with her plan from the left, essentially saying, this is the way they do it around the world. This is the way that you need to do it. I think our plan is more efficient, more effective. And then on the right, you're going to have Elizabeth Warren needs to be honest with the American public. These numbers are dodgy. And they're going to bring up the fact that one of her own economists has come out. Economists who back Warren's healthcare plan has doubts about her wealth tax. Meaning he doesn't believe that the money that Warren says she's going to be able to get from the wealth tax is going to be able to get from that. She's overplaying her hand. That's his point. Mm-hmm. Meaning, in order to make these numbers fit, you've been overplaying your hand. And he makes the other point, especially if she's trying to use that wealth tax to pay for something else.
Right.
Personally,
that's what he said.
The wealth tax should be higher.
Gymnastics.
The wealth tax should be higher. She's talking about 2 cents on every $10 million and above or something like that. 2 cents. That's it. The catch is because these uber incomes, like these 0.1% own more than wealth than the bottom 90%, then that number becomes massive. But she's going to have to defend this on debate stage.
I'm so sick of
You don't like her?
I'm so sick of her.
My issue with Warren is that she didn't back my guy. Honestly, that's my issue. Because I'm stuck with this thing of what is accountability?
She's just a cringy,
I don't think she's
lighter
horrible.
version of Hillary Clinton.
I don't think she's that bad. Like I don't. Like I said, I would have no issue with Warren if she wasn't running against Sanders. Because at that point,
I kind of feel like she's more in line with Hillary, and she's just faking it, which makes me more upset.
It makes me more upset because she's bringing my guy.
Sanders is there, and it's like, You really don't believe this shit. You were just Republican a couple weeks ago, and you were a lot of other things a couple weeks ago that we're finding out now aren't true. And you're taking votes away from
the point is, if she really believes what she's saying, if she really believes that she wants America to be this, America to be that,
she wants to make America great again,
she should just get out the race. That's how she.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. But the point is, you didn't run in 2016. Now you're running in 2020, and you're running as an echo of somebody. Think of that. You're running as a lighter version of somebody else that's in the race. The real thing is in the race. Why are you here if you really believe what you say you believe? I don't think you believe it personally. I think she would pivot on healthcare. I don't buy any of this stuff. I buy the banker stuff. So that the rest of it, you have to have trust, and I don't trust this at all.
Jim Garrison, thank you, Jim. Jim says, Lix's unicorns on sale this week only.
Yeah, she's going to have to. But look, I'll give her credit for this. If she can defend it on the debate stage. I wasn't going to say that,
Garden. No, don't be racist.
If she can defend it on the debate stage.
She can. She can.
You never know. I mean, it depends.
Oh, she got a lot of work to do between now and then. She get a lot of sleep, have a couple glasses of wine, work some shit out.
Going with single payer plus. And Gabbard is going to be like, well, your plan is unworkable. Mine is. I suspect that's going to be the attack. I think the attack is going to be dishonesty, but I could be wrong. Going with the attack of dishonesty tarnishes her in a way that I don't think Sanders wants to, but in a way that they would. Meaning Biden is playing old school politics. He's playing typical politics. He's going to be genteel. He's not going to hit a woman outright, but he will put a knife in her. He will put a knife in her. He wants to win. So, we'll see if she can defend.
Joe and Cringy Beth sound like high school teenage.
If she can defend it, she would get a bump.
Rock Lee says Youngsters are fooled by Yang on his public option.
I am so angry about that. I'm apoplectic about that.
No thanks to Yang.
I've made multiple videos, by the way, on that. Yang has a campaign commercial out where he says, and to implement Medicare for all. Now, I've shown the video where Yang was talking to the reporter.
Yeah, I don't really want that.
Yeah. He's like, are you for the bill? No, I'm not. But you're appropriating the name. Yes, I am. But you're not using any of the substance. No, I'm not. So isn't that a little deceptive?
Disingenuous?
Yeah, disingenuous. Well, and he's like, well, we debated that and all this other stuff. He's not for it. He's lying. Single payer is the beating heart of Medicare for all. And if you're not for single payer, you're not for Medicare for all in any sense of the word. He's lying flagrantly. I've given Yang a fair hearing on this channel. Meaning him, Tulsi, because I like this notion of these new ideas being in the debates when these new ideas were there
UBI,
before.
you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I like the idea of a UBI. I don't want to dismantle public services. So
but
none
what
of that.
else is he offering?
Just $1,000, bro.
I need a little bit more than that.
Just $1,000, bro. No healthcare, dog. Just $1,000, bro.
That's not really enough to get me by. To get my vote. Brent McKinney says stock trades were $300 in the 90s. Now free do $1 MFA.
Medicare for all.
Now free do $1 Medicare for all.
Oh, by the way, Lula is out of jail.
Babe, we talked about this.
Well, not this part.
Wait. Are we done with this topic?
Yeah, we're done with this topic.
Okay.
All right. Lula's out. Sanders has supported Lula when he was in, meaning Sanders has given good words and that type of stuff, and even pointed out that the system that locked Lula up came across as being dodgy. He was honest and open about Lula. Sanders, as president, Lula has done more than anybody else to lower poverty in Brazil and to stand up for workers. I am delighted that he has been released from jail, something that never should have happened in the first place. The judge ordered the release of Lula because he had additional appeals, right? And the law was essentially the Supreme Court had a bombshell ruling.
See, I listen.
I hear you. I see you. Lula returns the favor. Thank you for your solidarity. You have always been my candidate for U.S. presidency, and I hope Democrats will have the wisdom to nominate a candidate of your worldview. I hope American workers will make you president. I advise people to listen to the conversation between Lula and Glenn Greenwald. It was an amazing interview. And they get into this Operation Car Wash, but they also get into what it means to be on the left. And it becomes this really interesting conversation that goes beyond just the politics of now and goes into this kind of larger thing of what it means to be a lefty. But Sanders gets that nod. So shout out to Lula. Here's the other one. China WTO case. This was one of the patrons who wanted this one.
What?
So China wins a case to sanction $3.6 billion in U.S. trade.
Right. This was from Gladys Lopez. She said, oh, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it's basically the same title almost. She said, China secured the World Trade Organization's go-ahead to impose $3.6 billion in sanctions against the U.S. in a case that predates the tariff war between the world's two largest economies, but may add a layer of tension to ongoing talks. This was Gladys Lopez.
So I don't know if it's going to add tension to the talks. I mean, the United States is pissed off at the WTO in general, and so they may use this as part of a reason to try to, again, dismantle the WTO. They've been keeping judges off the bench from being approved. Meaning, think of like if the Republican Party never allowed another judge to get on the Supreme Court and they just die off, something like that. But beyond that point, this can be settled within the context of the trade negotiation in and of itself. So it may not necessarily adversely affect the trade negotiation, even though this ruling exists. This had to do with dumping or anti-dumping legislation that the United States was doing. The United States was taking policies of anti-dumping, and the China says that's not fair, in which case the court agreed.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. China and our relationship is extremely tense right now. China and Russia has a military relationship with one another. One, you can say, is a powerhouse in regards to technology, innovation. The other one is a powerhouse in regards to weaponry. And you can even say just outright grit, stubbornness. But working in tandem with one another. From the standpoint of China, there's something about the psyche. You have to understand. It's kind of like us. Think of how we are in this country from the standpoint of African Americans. We had a complicated history in this country, brought over in chattel slavery, beaten, abused, raped, violent fascists roving the streets without the cops coming to the assistance. And even then, when that stuff kind of edged off, you still had locking out of certain dormitories, enforced poverty, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
How we engage our world is different than maybe somebody else's, just because of the complex relationship we have with the people who are here. Right. The same thing is true, though, for them. Oftentimes we ignore that other countries have those deep, complicated relationships and have things in their psyche that go beyond just the individual moment of what happened back then. Like, well, I wasn't around back then. Yeah, but your government was. Those type of comments. China was subjugated by Western powers at one point. Meaning the dynasty couldn't keep up with the innovation that was taking place from the standpoint of the West, and the West imposed itself onto Chinese soil.
Right.
There were several rebellions trying to push this back, but ultimately, the Boxer Rebellion, I think, was the last one. But you had a situation where they forced opium onto China, meaning forced open the ports and forced open the drugs, and China couldn't do anything about it. Subjugating, essentially, the population. A brutal subjugation, by the way. Because of one of the rebellions, Britain got pissed off and stole Hong Kong. We're defending Hong Kong from terrorists. They didn't say that, but they might as well have said it. They just took it. Now, Hong Kong at that point was under British rule. Hong Kong at this point was supposed to go back to China after, I think it was like 50 years. I think now it's like 40-something years. China is deeply embarrassed by that. That needs to be understood. That deep embarrassment to some degree allows for a situation kind of like Jews, never again. That statement, never again will we allow this to take place. They've modernized themselves from the standpoint of military, from the standpoint of technology, and they've gotten themselves to a point now where they can defend themselves from some of the larger powers. There's a principle that I heard China talking about called the Tulsian gap. What that means is when you have a rival power coming up against a main power or hegemonic power, that there's often a war as the main power tries to maintain its position. Think of what the United States is doing right now in regards to technology and in regards to clandestine operations in Hong Kong, because we are there fucking around in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
We've been videotaped or recorded working with some of the people who were, some of the kids. And those protests, just like Venezuela, just like Honduras, violent. Notice when we are instigating ourselves in these affairs, they get violent. I mean, and you can see it got more and more violent the more, like, the money that's been streaming in, and even the taking down of the airports, the attacking people who don't necessarily follow their line. Like, this is an economic issue in many respects, but it is also a freaked out issue at being under China's rule. It's both. We always play up the China part, but the economic part also plays a hand in it. This is deeply embarrassing. The country that, at this point, wants to, and is at the position where it can defend itself, still has this vestige of these guys holding American flags, holding British flags.
Yeah.
When this thing was stolen from them. If that makes sense. I'm trying to get across this notion of a cultural memory that stings. When we see a cop shoot a black person, it stings. It stings all of us. Like, all of us look at this with a certain degree of anger associated with this situation. What does mainland China think about what and how Hong Kong is acting? It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. I guess my point is, the tensions with China go beyond just the trade stuff. The tensions with China go beyond this notion of a superpower trying to maintain its position as a superpower and not wanting anything to subvert or undermine that position. And they believe that China is doing so from the standpoint of technology. Hence, they're stealing our technology, all this stuff. Look, China has 3 times our population. I mean, they would, I would imagine, surpass us at some point just from the size of the population and the growth.
Right.
They've brought more people out of poverty than has ever been done on the planet. You're talking about tens of millions of people risen out of poverty. Again, they have 3 times our population. They have a burgeoning middle class that has started to take shape in China. It's a growing population. There are a number of electrical vehicles, movies, all of these things have started to take shape. Wouldn't want to live there. By the same token, the people in China, if you ask them, they would tell you we're relatively free. Like, we often look at these things as just one thing across the board without looking at the other competing interests of people who live there and the way they float within the context of a system. Just like we are in our system, we were born in it, we die in it. We think this is okay because we're used to this. Same thing with them. I guess I'm saying there's deep cultural trauma for stuff that took place from the standpoint of the Western powers. This trade thing is grating on that. But not just grating on that, they fully understand that the potential for a conflict is higher now, which is why they've been investing more money into military and so forth. We are spending, like 8 times or 9 times the next several countries, 9 countries, or twice as much, or more than the next 9 countries. I think we're spending like 3 or 4 times the amount that they're spending on their military. But they got to defend themselves. Like, a lot of this comes from that, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of the tension is not entirely based on trade, even though some of it is. Trump running around the world telling people to not buy Chinese products. That's, fucking insane. He's telling, like, Brits, don't buy technology that is in your best interest. China comes back and says, fine, let's sign a deal that says we will allow scrutiny of the projects and those type of things. Meaning, so people can verify whether or not there's anything in it. The U.S. was like, yeah, fuck that. Screw that. We're not doing that. Like, there's no back doors to the technology and that type of stuff. So we have been actively trying to ding them and slow down their technological growth. It hasn't been working. It hasn't been working at all. So, we haven't been investing in us. They have. They've been dumping massive amounts of money into their own society in order to bring the society up to standards. We have not been. The communists. A proletariat in charge, owning the capitalist class. Like, ultimately, they've allowed capitalism to just be used as a tool to enrich themselves and enrich the society. Isn't that interesting? Like, think for the moment if this isn't what you were soaking in. Now, we say we're awesome because we have 2 parties. They have 1 party, and we say, oh, they're bad. They only have 1. Within the context of that, though, you have a proletariat, or think of it as a capitalist class that's used by the government in order for enrichment, not the other way around.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, so weird. But they transform to, how they accommodated the society the way they accommodated. I don't know if this adds tensions, because the tensions are already there. I don't think anything happens before Trump's election. Because if he loses, they get a better deal with the next guy. I suspect that's across the board. It is also possible that China hits Trump in the knees just before the election. Meaning, let's say, like dumping our currency or something like that and dropping a dollar in the toilet and calling this kind of recession. So all sorts of things can take place. But the fact is, Trump is going to be running an election during an impeachment hearing and during the still trade war and apparently in the middle of stealing oil in the process. So it's just important to understand, like, their context in order to even get a better grasp of this.
It.
Yeah,
I get it.
Because all of this is window dressing to the underlying thing of we're adults and you're going to respect us as a peer. Whereas the U.S. philosophy is we're not going to allow anyone else to get to the position of the Soviet Union, meaning a peer and a rival nation. And so we're selling weapons to somewhere like South Korea or to Taiwan, which is a major foul. Even that history is interesting. Taiwan was originally China. Like during the Communist Revolution and all of these, the wars were taking place. Initially, Taiwan was the country. It's always a sticky subject between Taiwan and China.
Yeah.
This was fascinating, man. I had the opportunity to talk to a woman from China, and her perspective was so wild. Because her perspective was, so wait, you think the U.S. thinks of this as a zero-sum game? Yes, that's exactly how the U.S. thinks of this. Why aren't you? Like, I was even shocked that she asked the question of that. She was like, well, we don't really look at the world in those terms. I was like, what do you mean? She says, our perspective is we want the ability to grow and expand just like anybody else would be able to grow and expand and to make our lives better for the citizenry of the country. That's what we want. We think it's a God-given right. Our goal is not domination in the way that you guys are talking about domination. Well, they're going to get a crash course in the way that the U.S. is talking about it. And they do accept that there may be military consequences for their growth and expansion. They've been very clear. We are allied with Russia on this. Anything that happens to Russia happens to, we're fighting back. So, not to mention Turkey seems to be getting closer. India seems to be getting closer. We seem to be wedging some of these countries away from us, just in the way our behavior has been taken. So, all right, let's go to the next one.
Wait, Andrew Church has a good question.
Go for it.
He says, Jamarl.
Where have all the haberdashers gone?
No, that's Fred Edwards. Andrew Church says, Jamarl, do you think you'll ever make black box content again? They don't have to be highly scripted and stuff. I think the impromptu discussion nature of your content is part of what sets it apart.
Yes. Definitively. Yes.
Don't hold your breath.
Yes. No, don't be a naysayer. Don't be a naysayer. You see what I have to get? A naggy naysayer. Naggy naysayer. Yes.
A naggy wife?
No, I said naggy naysayer.
You wanted to say naggy wife.
No, I don't. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
Could you
That's
stop
sexist.
waving your finger at me?
I don't believe that. Yes, there will be content for the black box. And you might be right. Just the kind of talking about it and everything else.
That's what the wife been saying for like 3 months.
It's just that revenue is often derived through this channel, not the other one. So it creates a disincentive.
For fun. You don't want to just,
I'm a YouTuber. We're constantly looking for content in order to ensure that the revenue goes up.
I understand that, but you started it all.
I did.
For other reasons. And you really enjoy those talks.
I do. But
So
I was able to
just
do a
sit
UFO
down.
talk on this video.
I know, but why don't you... But then you'll be like, well, nobody's going to watch it if I put it on Black Box. That's because you don't put anything on Black Box. You have to put stuff there and drive...
How about this? I make a deal.
Viewers there.
Take the first 5 minutes, and then we can say you can see the rest on Black Box. How about that?
Not the first 5 minutes. I'm not cutting that shit. I mean, I'll cut it, but...
Now, if you remember, I have a video of this person saying, yes, I will be cutting the videos in a timely manner.
I didn't say that.
I have you on video, babe.
I just said play the video back.
Well, it's not on this video. I have to find it. But I have it.
Okay, good luck with that.
I have it. It's in one of those videos. How about this? If I can find that video, I should get some compensation. Just for the effort of making me search without believing me. I believe in you in an infinite way. Why isn't that not returned?
Reciprocated?
Yes. When we were gambling and we were in Kenya, what did I do? I said, here's $5, doll. Go make us some cash. I was like, think of $1,000. And what happened? I said, just roll. He was like, I don't have place. I said, I believe in you in an infinite fashion.
I believe in you. That's why I want you to
Tell
put
him,
the damn content
I did say
on
that,
there.
right? Tell him.
You always say that.
Yeah. And how much money you got? You got like $200.
I did leave with more money than I came with. Then I got sucked into the bingo game. I lost a couple dollars, but that's fine. That's beside the point.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with the bingo game. Yeah, the bingo game wasn't me.
I'm saying I have faith. I just want you to do the content.
The content is fun. And like I said, it looked like a younger man when I do UFOs videos.
I don't say that. Someone else said that.
Someone else said that.
You are really hanging on to that comment.
I think it's funny. I think it's a funny comment.
Okay.
They're talking about exuberance that just rises up in you.
You just get so excited and you start flailing about. And
I don't think flailing is part of it. Now,
it's a pretty accurate representation of what actually happens.
Do you want to give people a heads up on the protocols?
Protocols.
That's not what we're calling them.
Garden is really always advocating violence against you.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Violence against you. Oh, the protocols?
Yes, protocols.
What protocols?
What patron is.
Oh, okay. We have about 204 people here. If you have not already given the show a thumbs up, please hit the like button if you are enjoying the content. If you are not aware, today is Contributor Appreciation Show, and this is the once a week show where Jamarl takes out to talk about what you want to hear. Actually, I would like to think that you're always talking about what they want to hear, which is why they're here. But once a week, we put a post up on the Patreon platform and ask you specifically what would you like to hear for this show, and you give us your topic suggestions and we pull that to create today's content. If you are not familiar with what Patreon is, it is when you say, I like this person who's creating content, I want to support them, and I'm going to commit X amount of dollars each month, and you sign up to be a patron.
Yes.
Shout out to everyone who is a patron. Thank you so much. Shout out to everyone who gives through Streamlabs, PayPal, Super Chat, sending stuff in the mail, and for everyone who is not contributing monetarily, that is cool. Make sure that you are subscribed.
And subscribe.
If you enjoy the content, and come back. Tell your mama, tell your friends, share it to your neighbor.
All that good stuff.
Elijah gave me $2.
I always feel weird.
Wait a minute. Elijah says for Jamal's. Oh no, that's for you. For Jamal's infinite belief in his wife.
Right there.
He does.
Right there. Infinite belief.
It really is.
Wes, when we were at a massage parlor, because my back was killing me. It was killing me. And that woman, I forgot what she said to you. And what did I say? I was like, let's ride. Let's go. Fuck her. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, that was pretty. I felt pretty bad about that.
It's like, fuck her. Let's go. No questions asked. Infinite belief.
Well, that's more like infinite support.
Husbands are going to, wives are going to leave this and they're going to be like, he has infinite belief in his husband. You motherfucker. What do you have?
You mean infinite belief in his wife? I feel you. He does. In support and everything else.
Infinite. So Wes says, it's been a long 2 months. Not much of my signing bonus, but come profit sharing in February, I got you. Wes, dude.
Dude, that was from November the 8th.
I don't care. I didn't get the chance to read it.
Though. You didn't read that?
Shout out to Wes, man. I don't know if I saw it.
Wes, are you here?
But thank you, Wes. And
Wes goes way back.
He does. The GM strike. I really wish I did more videos on the GM strike. They but from my understanding, they made a deal. They've come to some kind of resolution in the deal. Their issue mainly was, in part, healthcare. Now think for the moment if that was off the table. You have Medicare for all. Those employees don't get their healthcare shut off where a kid with cancer gets told, oh, I'm sorry, your insurance is not taken here. It's off the table for negotiations. That stuff can be given back in wages or any other thing, but it should not, healthcare should just be off the table. I fundamentally don't understand why we allow poverty. I fundamentally don't understand it. I get it why top 1% would do it.
But why do we? Except
that's
this
different.
Is how we have to live.
This is a democratic order. This world, this country, it's not endowed by God. None of this stuff is real. This stuff is malleable. There are people who have certain interests, which is why I make the argument that billionaires shouldn't exist. Because if that class doesn't exist, then they don't grow up believing certain things, that they've earned this and that they should have much more money than people. And then that money that is not innocuous starts getting into the political space and dominating our lives. You can't have an oligarchy and a democracy. And I make the point that you have a billionaire in office. You have Tom Steyer, who's a billionaire who bought his way into the Democratic race. You have another billionaire, Bloomberg, that was pushed by another billionaire to get into the race. The richest man on the planet pushed him to get into the race. And again, billionaire in office. It's naked. No country, by the way, no oligarchy will rule nakedly. Usually they would cloak this, meaning the actors, the politicians who you have out there who are doing the shows and dances and everything else. And they get into their heads, this is the way the politics has to be. I got to take money, and the best that I can do is work around the edges, or otherwise I'm not going to get the money. I'm not going to get the revolving door jobs. I'm not going to get the lobbying positions. There are all of these incentives for this person to be corrupt. And this person probably comforts himself and says, the way to do it is to work around the edges. I could be least worse.
Yeah.
Now, for a Democrat, this is crushing, because ultimately you're the party that is supposed to be the least valve to capitalism, and instead you're co-opted by the same forces that have co-opted the other party. That means nothing gets changed, nothing gets accomplished. Right now, Macron is running against Le Pen. This is the exact situation we had in the United States. A neo-lib who's literally had a protest going on for almost a year, literally a year, yellow shirts, yellow jackets, against somebody who's considered an out-and-out racist. What do you do with that? What do you expect the public to go with that? I would imagine Sam Cedars of the world would be like, well, I mean, you got to vote for a can of soup if you got to vote for a can of soup. But where do you go with that? Do you put Le Pen in office as a takedown of Macron because you wanted Macron's government to collapse anyway? What do you do with this situation? Like, this situation is maddening because you're put into this no-win scenario where both choices are wrong. In our case in the United States, it was slightly different. My thought was the only way you're going to get anything accomplished is for Clinton to lose. That's consequences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He has been less violent than Clinton, meaning he has still been using those drone wars, but Clinton would have been using them more. She would have invaded Syria by now. That's something that he, for the very least, hasn't necessarily, outside of stealing oil, been all that much engaged in. He at least has given voice to taking the troops out. Like, the Democrats are starting more wars, just as a flat fact. Obama has his Libya, Obama has his Syria. Trump doesn't have any of this stuff. If he tries to take down Venezuela, maybe you can say Bolivia, in the sense that he's been helping with these right-wing takedowns.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just aggravated by this. You realize, like, for you to do your job, your person, whoever starts your job, they can't do anything without you. Like, you are instrumental to the way this society functions. But there are 320 odd million people in this country. And think about everything it takes just to keep the lights on, to keep the streets, to keep you're secure, to keep your streets clean, the air clean, to keep all of the companies and everything going. All of this requires your labor. And 95% of the income gains go to a top 1%, especially the top 1%. And I ask the question, stepping outside of this, considering that you are necessary to buy their products or to make their products, how on earth is it fair that you have no agency in this process? It becomes a totalitarian state the moment that you get into their job, and they just expropriate the wealth. Our income hasn't moved. The productivity gains have gone through the roof, and their income has spiked through the roof. And yet, the income gains of the regular public hasn't gone anywhere. I don't understand why this is okay. I get it from a top 1% argument. But stepping outside of the system that gives you this notion of fair and everything else, step outside of that. You don't have to be a part of that. And ask yourself, is it fair? 0.1% owns more than 90% of the wealth, of the bottom 90% of the wealth. 0.1% of the population. All of the labor, work, and everything that takes place from 320 odd million people. And 0.1% has more wealth than the bottom 90%. That's astonishing metrics. If I gave you $1 every day, every 10 seconds, it would take you 4 months to become a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Under the same metric, it would take 340 years for you to become a billionaire. Think about that. Like, I'm trying to give the metrics, the numbers, in a sense. If I gave you $421,000, which is the amount of a 1%, person's 1% when they hit that amount, if I gave you that amount every year from the time Jesus was born to now, you still wouldn't get $1 billion.
You remember those stats from the other
Yes.
day? Good, didn't you, baby?
Yeah, because I try to make it plain to people the disparity of wealth. Bezos has $150 billion. Bill Gates has $110 billion. The Waltons have what, $40-50 billion apiece. None of these people could have done any of this stuff without public assistance, because public assistance was helping in their products. The Waltons, but for different reasons. That's just welfare, meaning we have to support his people because he paid his people so low. But their products would not have been able to be sold, nor would anybody have been able to make those products if we weren't working at their stores. I don't understand how we become that instrumental for them to be who they are, and yet don't take the gains away.
Yeah.
That just seems maddening to me. And it's like this paltry image of the workforce where individuals think of themselves so atomized and so small in comparison to the whole, without ever looking at the system as a whole, as opposed to themselves within the context of it.
System.
Right, you're part of it. It's just aggravating. I just want workers to think of themselves in a higher perspective. Think of yourselves as we are completely vital and necessary for that particular. It's not, and people will say, "Oh, you're just jealous." It's not jealousy. There's a democratic process of problematic with having this power center in and of itself, but it's also this notion of fairness. What's fair? Is it fair for 95% of the income gains to go to the top 1%? And if it is not fair, then what in your system allows that? And what do we need to tweak? Not a small tweak, but to change the context of the system itself so it doesn't allow it. And for people to get to the point of saying, yeah, we tried that, we're not going to go back that way. Those were the bad old days, kind of like when the Romans were in the jungle. That's what I want. Or where they would say, yeah, serfdom was horrible, and so was that capitalism nonsense where we would get all that wealth to the top 1% and we had no agency in our jobs.
Right.
I am making the point that if you're working at a job, you should have a stake in that job. You should have agency to make some of the decisions in that job, including in the amount and the way that wealth is distributed. None of this nonsense where one person has an idea, he gets infinite value from that idea. We're going to get our own first trillionaire at some point. And then when they get bodies where they can fashion because of technology, they'll just be there forever. Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos, alive forever.
213 years old.
$30 trillion. Yeah.
Steve Jacob, thank you. He didn't leave a comment, but he did send a super chat. So thank you from Steve Jacob.
All right.
I'm running out of steam, babe.
My powers are lagging. All right, so
my
last one.
bedtime was like 48 minutes ago.
So last one. This report is a bombshell if this report is true, but I don't accept this report to be true. But one of my subscribers asked about it, and so let's talk about it. Report claims Jared Kushner gave green light to MBS arrest and Jamal Khashoggi. White House says it's nonsense. Now, what they're alleging is that Jared Kushner gave the green light for Khashoggi to be captured.
And we all know what happened once he was captured. Don't do those.
He was deboned. It wasn't good. Khashoggi being deboned hit international headlines. It was all over the place. Now, the CIA supposedly gave the assessment that, yes, MBS clearly did this. And the question was always, well, how do you know? And then you find out there was like phone records of the stuff. Now, what they're contending is Kushner gave the green light to capture Khashoggi. We know what happened to Khashoggi. After that, Turkish government, Erdogan, had a copy of that tape. Meaning knew of the tape and had copies of him having that conversation. And blackmailed Trump into giving over the area from the Kurds. Now, I call bullshit on this because I think this is I think this is nonsense. But I think this is nonsense because Democrats have no credibility with me at all at this point. They had a conspiracy theory for 3 years. And this is one of those things where if it is true, you need to show it that it's true. And I'm not going to believe it until you do. Now, the catch is they're saying that some of the impeachment is revolving around that. If it is true, Trump will be impeached.
Yeah, I can understand that one.
If it's true. And by the way, by his own party, no less. Because this gets dicey. I mean, Khashoggi getting deboned is grisly in and of itself, despite the bombings in Yemen and everything else. Like, all of these murders that take place in Yemen, hundreds of thousands of people dead, disease, starvation, that we have backed in that country. Horrendous. One man gets deboned. And I understand that the pain of that man in that moment had to be extraordinary. Apparently there's a tape of him like screaming and whatnot. If Jared Kushner did that, that is going to be frowned upon, to put it mildly. And if Trump made an exchange of sorts, being blackmailed, like the president being blackmailed in and of itself is just dicey, right? But we'll see. I haven't been entirely following closely the impeachment hearings. I've been following parts of it, like the Roger Stone stuff. I got up to date on that. But until it's real, I don't care.
But if it is real,
then he's going to be impeached.
Yeah.
I don't have entire lot of feelings about this. I don't like this impeachment hearing. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it throws a wrench into something that might have been a straightforward, deterministic win for the Democrat. Now, instead of having this conversation about healthcare and all this other stuff, especially if you want Sanders to win, it gets minced into whether or not you feel,
process,
and what they feel about the party that's going through with the impeachment. They never gave the president a chance, and they would be right. They tried to, for conspiracy theory, didn't get it, and then immediately went around to the Ukraine stuff. And when the Ukraine stuff comes out, the Republicans are going to be calling Hunter Biden Chalupa. Chalupa was a DNC operative that was trying to get information on Ukraine in order to dig Manafort. Now, this wasn't political. This was known. They are going to hit Biden while they are hitting Trump. And the question becomes, will the Republican Party under Mitch bow to their needs? I don't think so. I don't think Mitch gives in this case. So.
Oh, we got another super chat. Hold on, let me go back.
Right. And that'd be the last one.
Steve Jacob again. Thank you. Steve, leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I am dragging ass at this point. It's late. I'm tired. I'm hot. I want to thank all of you for coming.
Fucking beanie off.
Yeah, I take beanie. But
show your hair.
Can I touch your hair?
Yeah.
Can I touch your hair?
Don't pull it, but.
That's how people do. They be like, can I touch your hair? It's so
crinkly. Can we see your hair?
Who's we? You see my hair. You already know my hair. It looks.
Stop looking. It's time to go.
It's the same.
It's time to go to bed. It's not
exactly
the same.
It's exactly the same.
You saying, can you see my boobs? It's not the same as
exactly
take off
the same, man.
Shows your hair.
My hair is my strength, like Samson.
People used to speculate that you didn't have any hair.
Yeah, I don't know where those speculations came from. You take my hat as me hiding my head as if there's some shame there.
I don't.
Maybe
I know
it's
what
a
your hair
precious
looks
thing.
like.
Maybe it's a precious thing that I covered like a vagina that I don't necessarily want to just give out to the outside world.
This has gotten... All right, time to go to bed.
It's like a chastity belt.
Okay.
It's like I try to hide it away from the public so one piece
Victoria
of it can be
Lawless
safe.
says, show your hair so we know you're not a day walker. BCM Falls says, does he have dreads? No, you'd see him if he had dreads.
No dreads.
He's a secret ginger. Well, that would be interesting.
No, I'm not. I just put a hat on because it allows me to face the day while keeping part of myself hidden away. No, seriously, that's not bullshit, actually.
Okay.
I'm too deep, man. It's deep.
But, yeah.
It's deep. It's like layers.
Way too shallow.
It's like, because think of it for the moment. If everything of you is just exposed to the public, there's nothing of you that's... I engage the public in an earnest and out there way.
There's plenty of stuff that's covered, even if you didn't have a hat on.
I know, but it's still intellectual. It's kind of like in a firing squad. They would tell this guy, he was like, look, you got the blank. Or they would say somebody has a blank. And all of them can keep their conscience clean that I was the guy with the blanket, so I didn't really kill that guy that I fired in the firing squad. My head is kind of the same way. Even though I know technically that I'm giving all of myself to the audience in this way, there's a piece of me that is hidden.
I'm so confused.
Away.
Okay.
It is, babe. That's how I work. That's how I roll. That's how I roll, dog.
ECM Fall says, maintain your mystery. Okay.
There you go. There you go. On my last show.
Which will be
when you drag my corpse in here. You can have it. It's like, all right, here. Unmasking like Spider-Man. It's like, yeah, the head full of hair. What the fuck? I had a mohawk for a while. But you guys would have never known. Isn't that cool?
I didn't enjoy that time. Actually, it
wasn't
like bad. I didn't like it when you did it yourself.
What do you mean?
You just like took a razor and shaved it, and it was like, it was a lot to take in. We should show a photo of that.
I have one at the Native American fair.
It was aggressive. But then, like, once it kind of, like, grew in a little bit, it wasn't as stark, which you just, like...
It was a mohawk.
It was a lot.
Also, part of me wanted to not give a fuck, if that makes sense. And the way you kind of not give a fuck is to do something that forces you to give a fuck in order for you to kind of get over the hurdle of not giving a fuck. Now, I don't know what was going on at the time. I think I was working for Don at the time doing a software program. And it was like trying to get that thing out and running and all this other stuff.
Agent says you think you're a superhero.
That's my identity, dog.
We know that, Garden.
Man on the wall.
Okay, I'm going to bed.
Like, just there. Like
oh,
Nick
crap.
Fury.
Google thinks I'm talking to them. They just gave me results for Bed Bath & Beyond.
Here's a question.
Uh-oh. It's not Brady.
You have a house. And in that house, you have a Siri, or what are those things? The thing that my mom has, where you can talk to it and be like, Siri, where's the closest, You okay?
Go ahead.
You okay?
Siri, what?
You okay?
I'm fine.
You okay?
I'm fine.
That's
Siri, what? I thought I was going to break your microphone.
Better try to keep us from... You're living wrong, dog.
It was a mohawk.
So you say Siri, and you can say, where's the closest Bath Beyond, that type of stuff. Somebody breaks into the house and kills you. And the cops say, is there a record of Siri of you getting murdered? Should the cops be allowed to open that Siri? Especially when that Siri wasn't supposed to be recounting anything, if that Siri kept anything at all.
I want Siri to be used to find my killer.
Now, say it wasn't your house. Say it was somebody else's house. And somebody breaks in and kills you. Should they be able to break into the records of somebody else's house to find out whether or not you were off? Especially when that thing wasn't supposed to be recording anything.
Well, Siri's always on. That's like my phone just thought that I was talking to it and tried to respond. They're always listening. They have to and able to be responsive when you say something. I know, but
supposedly they only have a small segment. I'm just saying... It's not supposed to be recording your intimate conversations, even though in some cases they have done that to symptom. I'm asking though, as these technologies get more and more used, should they be able to break into somebody's Siri in order to determine whether or not it recorded a murder? Let's say it did record the murder. Should they be able to break into somebody else's Siri to do it? Maxie, you bad?
I feel like...
Aren't my rights being violated? Meaning me, the owner of the house?
Well, they can come into your house with a warrant and do other stuff. And get other things to support a case.
Yeah, but
so if that thing is in there and it has recorded and it has evidence in that electronic device, it's fair game with a warrant.
If I am in my house, I have a right to private conversations. Whatever's taking place in my house, should they be able to break into it? It's like, should they be able to break into your cell phone? I don't think cops should be able to go into your cell phone. Now,
well, it's not the cops at that point.
Who's it?
That's like the judge. Well,
the judge is offering...
Giving a warrant.
It's going to have to give a warrant for it.
Right.
I guess I'm saying they've been going after companies to try to get the companies to see if they've revealed any information.
Somebody else said, Amy said you get a warrant.
Yeah, you get a warrant for it. Will they give a warrant for that? Does it violate? Especially if I'm like, yo, I don't want you to have this information. Maybe I have something on my Siri I don't want you, like I'm viciously afraid of or embarrassed by.
Hey You Hi says recorded evidence is private property.
Right. That's my point. I'm asking, should they be able to get a warrant?
I think so.
Why? You can invade my private property.
With a warrant.
I know, but should you be able to get the warrant? Like, what right do you have to invade my private property in this case?
To catch a killer?
I know, but it's my private property. Maybe I don't think that killer thing is more important than maybe something I'm embarrassed by.
Maybe I'm just so conditioned to the fact that that's what they do already.
Not all the time. It depends on the money that you have to fight this stuff. You know, with the Apple case, where they were trying to get Apple to give over how to break into their own device, and Apple was fighting the case in court. They had this huge major case between Apple and the court system. I don't know. I suppose you can have like a right of some kind of law that says you have the right to, if somebody gets killed on a recording device. I would imagine all that stuff starts coming up in questions because it's coming up now, where they're trying to get information on that stuff.
Nathan says, well, if you're dead, can you protest that?
So my thought was, if you kill me in my house, then yes, you should be able to get that information because it's my house and my privacy.
But like, if maybe you killed your girlfriend while she was at your house.
Right. You're right. You can't. Right. That's the case.
And now the girlfriend is missing, and they want to
and I'm
investigate your Alexa.
I'm like, fuck that.
And they're gonna say, well, we have a warrant because this was the last place that she was seen alive, and her car was parked outside at 3 p.m.
I suppose they could get a warrant to go and invade the house. That's true. But the catch is, if there's no evidence per se.
Josephine, well, there has to be evidence. They can't just be oh, maybe you did it, let's come in.
Right.
No, that's why there's a warrant. They have to go to a judge to get approval for a warrant, and you have to take other evidence or circumstances in order to get that warrant.
Supposedly.
Josephine says if they have probable cause, that's the word I'm looking for, they can obtain a subpoena.
Yeah. This stuff is going to get interesting. I mean, your devices are going to start telling on you. Isn't that some weird shit? Like, you're in a car, you go to a neighborhood, you come back, and it's like, your wife's like, where you been? Oh, I just went for donuts. It's just looking at you in shame. Or, for that matter, speeding. At a certain point, the car may give recordings to the cops that you were going...
Well, my phone doesn't give recordings, but, like, I noticed, like, with one of my Google Map updates, it had my speed.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa,
right, it's telling
calm down.
That's what I mean.
Calm down. I know what I don't need you to broadcast that.
The more
don't record that.
And especially when you get self-driving cars. Because at that point, everywhere you go is going to be clout.
Yeah.
If you had a government and a public system that you agreed with and that you didn't think was fucking you over, that's not a bad thing. Like, if I could go up, if I could wake up, if I could hit a button, a little car takes me from point A to point B. It's a public service. I go to wherever I'm going to, no issue. I would prefer it be trams that can take you, it's easy to get from point A to point B. You can that type of stuff. But an Uber that's solar power that drives me from point A to point B, even if you have kids, imagine having a 4-year-old, 5-year-old that you says, look, I want this car to take you directly to this place. Don't fuck around. And the car just does it. You don't have to do it yourself. Like, all sorts of things open up from that standpoint. Now, the argument that some people make is, yeah, but hundreds of thousands of people are going to lose their jobs. That's like the horse and buggy thing. Should society withhold technology just because people lose their jobs for the technology? The problem in that case is the society, not the technology. Like, it's not the issue.
People are going to lose their jobs and then lose their health care.
Well, the issue is that it's ruled by 1%. If Uber wasn't owned by 1%, meaning if the resources of Uber were owned by essentially the public itself, then that issue is not entirely that bad, especially if you had a public system that can accommodate those people to live. Like, I'm not on this... I think you should get rid of poverty as a base. I think once you get rid of poverty, people can make free choices in regards to a job that they want to take or not take. I don't understand libertarians' notions of freedom that doesn't include that point. Because if you are hungry, or if you need health care, or if you have kids to feed, then how are you making a free choice for a job? It's not a free choice. Your needs compel your behavior.
Wait.
If that's taken off the table, meaning at the very least you had a basic subsistence of living, you had a house and all that other stuff, you can make that free choice. I don't think people will be lazy in those terms. Some people will, but the majority of society will be fine.
Fred Edwards says, Mrs. JLT. Hi, Fred. We were just talking about you earlier.
Yeah.
Did haberdashers steal Jamarl Thomas' fedoras?
No, it's
That's
cold
a hat,
here.
technically.
Yeah, it's cold
chilly.
here. It's just
like
cold
30
here.
degrees in the morning. Gary says, is a smart speaker any different than a surveillance camera? I think that's kind of what we were saying.
No, there's not. I mean, it depends on how much information it's holding. Those cameras that we have outside, the Ring thing, they've been giving those things to cops. Cops have been using those to surveil neighborhoods. Did you know that?
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah. We've essentially allowed ourselves to be surveilled. Your cell phone is a device that keeps track of you all the time. Your car, the smarter that gets, is going to keep track of you all the time. Especially when it gets to the point where that car is just driving you from point A to point B. Your refrigerator can keep track of how much and what you're consuming. When you get a smart fridge. Those devices will be able to send information to the company, send it back. And they will be able to create plans and models of you. I've done this, my own self, so I know that how much you can corral information on the person and set up a metric of sorts of what that person is, how rich that person is, the wealth, what that person eats, whether they're keto, all the stuff, the things that you can advertise. They can do all that stuff. And we're doing it for ourselves.
I have to read this from Fred Edward because it's funny.
Go for it.
Fred says, my Alexa listens when I have sex. Bonus is Amazon Prime delivers the morning after pill the next day.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Matthew says, if you haven't done anything wrong, why do you need privacy? Are you hiding something?
I think that's a nonsense perspective. I mean, it's people.
If I'm having sex, it's not wrong.
That's not wrong.
I still want it to be private.
Not just that. The last thing you want is the state to have an ever vigilant eye. How can you ever organize with a state that is always watching? Think about like what taking place in the standpoint of the Black Panthers. They weren't doing anything wrong, but the state was using ways to break up those groups. Think of other groups like Occupy Wall Street, where you have cops invading the groups in order to. They're not doing anything wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean that state actors wouldn't get involved in processes, or that person as an individual just doesn't want that shit to be known. That's not wrong. That argument is always a nonsense argument to me. If you're not doing anything wrong, why would you care? It's like, I walk around naked. It's like, oh, dude, I don't need you to do that. Well, hey, I just want you to be clear on what, I have all these ass pictures in the various places that I'm in.
Sometimes, after all this time, I still get confused about what the hell you're talking about. All right, are we done? Because it's after 10.
It's late.
And I hear one of the children is whining.
Like, share, subscribe, and guys, honestly, I want to thank you. This content has been brought to you by you. They demonetize all of these videos. I could show you the list. One day, I think I did 5 videos. 4 of them were demonetized right off the bat. And then they do this thing where they would demonetize later, so you can't catch it when they do it. So it's like you're 2,000 in and it's demonetized. YouTube is becoming a treacherous territory on which to work. So I appreciate all of you for allowing this channel to exist.
I got it. Oh. Nothing.
Oh, my wife has a channel too. What's the name of your channel, babe?
You should tell them.
Give them a plug.
You should tell them.
No, I usually let the person give their plug. All right. Like, share, subscribe. If you don't toot your own horn, nobody else will toot it for you.
Good night.
That's a lesson in showbiz. I just gave you a good lesson in showbiz, yo.
That's not showbiz, babe.
It is. This is art mixed with news.
You said that like that was the definition of show business.
In my case. Actually, to be honest, I just do news. For the most part, you just get me. She would probably tell you I'm no different in the house than I am on this channel, which can be, I would imagine, a bit aggravating to have to deal with constantly. At this point, I don't see the point in other information. It's like the issues that take place seem so large and they loom over everything else that it's hard to have other conversations that don't involve data, news, information. Not to mention, I require content constantly, so you're always chasing news. It's
what about my needs?
It's like, so-and-so had a baby. It's like, okay. So-and-so did this. That's nice. Did you know that there's a coup going on? It's like that's kind of the way my brain thinks.
I know, babe.
Like and share, guys.
Have a good night.
I will see you guys tomorrow.
Have a good week.
And yeah, what happens tomorrow? Nothing. I don't think anything. I'm going to be on By Any Means Necessary later in the week, so be on the lookout.
Tuesday nights, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out the Progressive Soapbox Radio Hour.
Yes, that radio hour
here
is
on
really
YouTube.
Good.
If you are local
in Richmond, Virginia, 93.9 FM.
And what's your show? .org.
Yeah. Tell people your show.
Oh, my YouTube channel is Aisha's Best Life, or you can find me on Instagram at Less Waste Aisha.
Yep, she talks shit about me on that channel, so you guys will be able to get a inside view from her perspective.
It's about focusing on reusables instead of disposable shit, and
she does good work.
Less waste. It's like 2 videos.
She's gotten really good.
It was. Oh wait. Let me just say really quick. It was so funny because a lot of the people that are subscribed came from your channel, and the last
environmental stuff.
The last video that I posted, Garden Gnome is subscribed, and maybe 20 minutes after I posted, Garden Gnome was like, "What the fuck? Is this a real channel now?" He was probably like one of the only 5 people that watched it, but it was adorable. So shout out to you.
Like, share, subscribe. Thanks all.